On a sunny day somewhere, some gentlemen and ladies were gathered. They were enjoying the weather and chatting until someone appeared who caught their attention. It was a gentle cat wearing a green cape and carrying a quantity of merchandise. They were startled when they saw the cat. Some even found him cute, but he was a serious cat and a merchant. When they asked what he was selling, he quickly revealed a cherry tomato, astonishing some of them. Others, however, were disappointed, thinking he was selling legendary weapons or mysterious potions. But the cat was clever and knew that those humans wouldn't recognize such a valuable product. Thus, he asked them to check the product's description. When they did, they noticed the difference. It was a magical cherry tomato that increased mana regeneration by 0.1 for 10 minutes. Moreover, it could also help a person lose 10 grams of fat just by eating one. The cat agreed that the product was amazing and priced it at 0.5 coins each. Quickly, everyone wanted his entire stock. There was even a knight who wanted to know where the cat got those items. However, that cat was truly cunning and claimed it was a secret he couldn't share. Elsewhere, in a place surrounded by magic and beautiful fruits like the ones the cat was selling, a young man was talking to his rabbit, saying they had enough tomatoes for the day. Waving his hand, he called the other rabbits to all go rest. After that, he began squeezing the tomatoes to make a drink and asked the bee to bring him a bit more honey. At that moment, his bee friend did as he requested, and now his juice was ready and delicious. While they enjoyed their drink, their friends also savored theirs. Satisfied, he raised his glass and declared that this was the good life, having just had a smoothie. It was a drink made of cherry tomato juice with honey. His mission now was to distribute the drink. There would be no reward, and if he refused, it would disappoint the tower's administrators. And when he was outdoors with his rabbits and his smoothie in hand, the cat returned, shouting for his master. Satisfied, the cat leapt into his master's arms, who praised him for a job well done. Now the bag that had been full of cherry tomatoes was packed with coins, and as a reward, it could be his. The young man thought it was only a matter of time before his name became famous, which startled the cat. Running, the cat said it wasn't time to relax. He needed to eat quickly and leave because he wanted more money. Thus, he asked the black rabbit to replenish the supplies. The young man noticed the cat had become addicted to money. Placing his hand on his head, he realized he had forgotten something. Suddenly, he picked up a stone and wrote on a larger rock. By that day, 150 days had passed. His name was Park Sejuan, and his class was farmer. Seeing the black rabbit climb onto his shoulder, the farmer asked if he was done. The merchant cat said he could also help a bit. It had been 150 days since he had somehow entered that tower and gotten lost. He, the black rabbit, and the merchant were ready to begin. He gazed at the vast land ahead. This story was about a farmer who survived after getting lost in the tower. It all began 10 years ago, in Seoul, on a bustling day. A black tower with 99 floors appeared. It wasn't just in Gangnam. A total of 100 towers appeared simultaneously, in different cities across various countries, including Korea. Each nation investigated the towers that had appeared. But the only thing they discovered was that the tower was 990 meters tall and made of an absurdly durable material. Not even nuclear bombs could penetrate those towers. Then, one day, people started coming out of the tower through its walls. This attracted the attention of reporters, photographers, and the media at large. They wanted answers about how these people had managed to enter the tower. The individuals explained that a black hole had suddenly appeared, and when they woke up, they were on the first floor of the tower, making headlines everywhere. All 100 towers were connected to one. Once someone entered the tower, they would awaken on the first floor. This information was being shared with everyone. If someone obtained a ticket, awakened, they could freely enter and exit the tower. Everyone had questions about the origin of the tower, and whether it contained monsters or was dangerous. What was said was that not much had been discovered, and a girl appeared with a chest and opened it. The person giving the interview said one thing was certain: everyone would become absurdly rich. It was from that box, which seemed magical, that much more gold came out than could certainly fit in a normal box. They were encouraging people to climb the tower, claiming they could become rich. It had already become news that the Awakened Association was announcing ticket prices for the Black Tower. The price would be adjusted from 150 million to 200 million. However, hundreds of thousands of people were still waiting to buy a ticket. Many people thought it was madness. It was a lot of money to enter an unknown place. When a young man arrived at that market, an elderly lady vented that she thought what people were doing was risky. The young man agreed, and he was the protagonist, the current farmer who, under the circumstances, was 26 years old. He looked at his app and noticed that after tuition fees and rental interest, he had managed to save nearly 12 million. But he was afraid the ticket price would go up again and didn't know when he could buy one under the same conditions. Heading home, he saw the tower in the distance, which was his goal, wondering if he would ever manage to climb it. Arriving home, he was very tired, but his quick thinking brought him back to reality. He couldn't get discouraged because he had to save money to achieve his goal. Looking into his shopping bag, he noticed he had bought vegetables at a good price and thought he might even try planting some. He knew that vegetables would also get more expensive and remembered seeing his favorite idol in a vegetable commercial. He thought that perhaps he could join a good guild if someone recognized his talents, and if he completed the tower, he could propose to her, as he would be famous for clearing the tower. It was a dream, and he would hold on tight, though he didn't notice a black sphere forming around him. It grew quickly until it became a massive black hole above his head. With the movement of the wind, he noticed something and, looking up, realized it was a black hole. It was the phenomenon that had sucked in the first generation of the awakened, and he got excited, thinking he might get pulled in as well. He declared that he was ready to risk his life climbing the tower, and authorized the black hole to take him. He certainly thought the black hole would speak to him, so he stood with his arms open, waiting for a moment. Then he noticed it was shrinking more and more and asked why it was getting smaller without taking him first. He thought it didn't matter. He wouldn't miss such an opportunity. If it wouldn't pull him in, he would jump in. He threw himself into that black hole toward the tower, and when he reached the end of the path, he landed face first on the ground. Now he was smothered on the ground with his bag of vegetables, but he was satisfied because he had managed to enter the tower. Seeing a light ahead of him, he thought it might be the sophisticated marble chandeliers of the first-floor plaza. But he wasn't very excited when, in front of him, he saw only what looked like a hole with sunlight radiating through it. He realized he had fallen into a cave, and above, there was an opening where the sunlight entered. Initially, however, he seemed quite frustrated. This wasn't what he had dreamed of for so long, and it made him upset for a while. From the outside, though, it was just a hole with a person inside. He shouted loudly, asking where he was. His voice echoed and could be heard from far away, and a tower with a crystal ball lit up. What appeared to be a black dragon noticed the change in its crystal ball and detected a shift in the tower. With clenched teeth, it needed to find the cause, as that was the duty of the tower's administrator. When people who had supposedly gone to the Black Tower were asked what it was like, they said it was a very bright and spacious palace and that there were items people could buy in the tower. They said the most important things on the first floor were the training grounds. That's what they said, but the truth was that it was a place in nature with a very beautiful blue sky. But for the protagonist, who was just inside a hole, thirsty and hungry, it didn't seem so fun. To him, it was just a hole with no way out. He wandered the cave all day but didn't find an exit. He thought he might have gotten lost, as he didn't find the fabulous place everyone claimed existed. He got scared when his phone alarm rang at 6 o'clock. That's when he realized the day had passed since he arrived. When he put the phone back in his pocket, he felt his stomach signaling it was time to eat. He checked his belongings to see what he had for food: a bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, and 10 scallions. There were 7 sweet potatoes with squash and an apple. First, he planned to eat the apple, thinking there was nothing better to eat in the morning. When he was still hungry, he decided to eat more. He thought the texture of sweet potatoes was very delicious. He usually cooked them but found it fine to eat them raw occasionally, though he suddenly started feeling something. He choked on it, and had to drink water to recover. Now that he was both fed and hydrated, he lay on the ground. Looking up, he thought about how good it was to have a meal and wondered how much longer he would stay trapped there. He needed to find a way out before the food ran out. Glancing at the small amount he had left, he wondered how long he could survive with such little food and if no one came to rescue him. He stood up, determined not to die like that. This was a tower. It had been their dream to get there. Looking back, he noticed the apple seed he had eaten and had the idea to plant it. He did the same with the other ingredients. With the scallions, he planned to use the leaves as food and plant the roots. He also planted 3 tomatoes and 2 sweet potatoes. He made a mistake with the small amount of water he had. He realized he needed food scraps for sustenance. He would do whatever it took to survive until rescue came. Satisfied, he asked his crops to grow, as they were the farmer's future. But then he felt a tremor. Startled, he wanted to know what it was. Could it be a monster? The information he had was that there were no monsters on the first floor, but when he looked up, he was terrified. It seemed as though another black hole was forming around a blue light, and the noise was deafening. It made his body tremble. Suddenly, the sound stopped, and he saw a dragon flying in the sky. He was fascinated to see the black dragon. It was beautiful, but he also felt fear. He lay on the ground. He stayed on the ground so long, pretending the dragon wouldn't see him, that he fell asleep. He was awakened by a phone alarm. When he checked how long he had been out, he realized it had been 2 days. He could hardly believe it. Lying on the ground for so long had caused back pain. He was exhausted. Now his body ached, and he was out of energy, leaning against a tree behind him. When he turned to look at what kind of tree it was, he was shocked to find it was his scallion crop. However, they didn't look like normal scallions. They had grown so large they were his size. He thought it might be due to the tower's unusual soil. It could have affected the scallion's growth. Maybe the same would happen with the other crops. He thought it was great because they had grown a lot. However, he was worried because not all the plants could get sunlight due to the scallions. He figured he should harvest some. Even though the plants were very large, harvesting them was easier than he had expected. And now that he had plenty of them, he wondered how they would taste. He felt a strong burning sensation as the scallion was incredibly spicy, much stronger than the original flavor. It was strange because it didn't hurt his stomach. He thought he would eat it whenever he wanted something spicy. Then he sat on a rock and started eating his cherry tomatoes, noticing that the sun didn't set in the tower. The train occasionally covered the sun with the moon from each floor. They called this phenomenon the blue moon. But the blue moon only happened on the 10th floor. He thought he was still somewhere on the first floor. However, there was also that dragon. Was it an illusion, or could it really be real? 10 years ago, when the tower appeared, one of the greatest guilds, the Phoenix Guild, managed to clear the 37th floor. Many details about the floors below 30 could be found on YouTube. The information was that from the 2nd to the 10th floor, skeleton soldiers appeared. From the 11th to the 20th, goblins appeared. From the 21st to the 30th, orcs began to appear, and from the 31st, monster spiders started showing up. However, no one had ever mentioned anything about dragons. It was already widely circulated on the internet, but nothing similar to a dragon was ever discussed. The question was, which floor was he on? He thought he might have gotten lost on a floor even the best hunters hadn't reached. It hadn't even started raining, but he had heard the tower's weather was always calm and clear. When he looked up, he saw something. He thought it might be a monster, and from above, a small, cute bunny was looking at the young man below, drooling. Looking at the vegetables and crops below, the young man thought it was a rabbit. It might also be a monster. Without thinking, the bunny jumped down. The young man trembled for the bunny's life and tried to catch it. But the clever rabbit just used his head as a trampoline. After landing on the ground, it quickly made its way to the scallions. When the farmer looked, he noticed that it wasn't an ordinary rabbit. It pointed at the scallions as if asking for permission. Park asked if it wanted to eat, then pulled out a scallion and handed it to the rabbit. Seeing the rabbit's satisfied expression while eating, he asked if it liked it. If it did, it could take more. And he noticed that as soon as the scallion was harvested, it grew back quickly. In no time, it seemed he should harvest twice a day. The rabbit made a gesture, as if calling others from outside. Soon, another rabbit appeared. This one was wearing some kind of apron. Then came another rabbit, wearing a hat and carrying a watering can. The farmer stood up and looked, noticing that now there were 2 more rabbits, and he wondered if they were a couple. They must be a pair, as they seemed very in sync with each other. He had gotten lost days ago in the tower, but a rabbit couple had joined him in the cave. Another day dawned, and the young farmers were already busy, inspecting the rabbits. They cheerfully harvested scallions and watered the other plants. The rabbits did this with great dedication. Park thought the rabbit couple got along very well and wanted to know how that had come to be. They seemed very eager to live in the cave with him, which left him quite surprised. However, he couldn't deny anything to those small and adorable animals, who made cute, "Let us stay" faces. They were so endearing that the farmer even felt his heart race, leaving him no choice but to let them stay. However, he said nothing came for free. He would consider it if they helped with the farm, and all they had to do was cut the scallions. The enthusiastic rabbit couple was delighted and jumped on the young farmer. After a session of cuteness, he felt he was being manipulated by those soft rabbits. Curious, he asked about the objects the rabbits carried with them. It turned out the watering can carried by the male rabbit had unlimited water. No matter how much it was used, the water wouldn't run out. He guessed the apron the female rabbit wore must have had a magical pocket, as she kept pulling things out of it. For a moment, he felt envious and wished he also had equipment like that. As he commented on this, he noticed the rabbits had already finished their work. He asked the rabbits to store the scallions they had cut and observed that there were still no changes in the sweet potatoes. Meanwhile, the cherry tomato sprouts were growing, and growing quickly. It might have been because of the rabbits. He noticed that after he inspected the plantation, the rabbits grew restless, observing his gaze. He also noticed that the 2 rabbits held hands, as if awaiting his decision. After a deep sigh, the young farmer informed the rabbit couple that they were hired. The couple's celebration was indescribable. However, they spoke in a language the protagonist couldn't understand. They dashed off so quickly that they kicked up dust, startling the young man, who didn't know what was happening. But he kept watching the 2 rabbits on the other side of the cave, who seemed to be whispering to each other. They were digging. The female rabbit appeared to be giving orders, and the male rabbit, determined to follow them, dug non-stop. After making several holes tirelessly, the rabbit didn't give up and continued digging. Later, the female rabbit prepared a daisy wreath, which she gently placed on the entrance to their new home. The couple's burrow was finally ready. The male rabbit worked hard to make it as deep as possible. Meanwhile, the female rabbit focused on decorating it and was quite proud of the final result. The protagonist was amazed at how they built a house. It was so fast. He praised the male rabbit, saying he did a great job, even though the rabbit was exhausted from all the hard labor. The female rabbit charmed the male rabbit and seemed to be inviting him into the burrow to get comfortable. The male rabbit showed a surprised expression. Even so, he was dragged inside by the female rabbit, who seemed smitten. They went into their burrow, and the young man wished the male rabbit luck. Even at that moment, the farmer felt envious. However, staying alone in the cave was getting boring. He made a bed out of scallion leaves. Thanks to the rabbits, he managed to help with the farm and had now witnessed some adorable moments. He was lying down, resting, when he felt something heating his back and had to get up to cool down a bit. The sun was very hot, and its rays reflected off the bottle, causing the scallion leaves to burn. However, when the man saw he had managed to create fire using that technique, he was very pleased. He looked at the plastic bottle with admiration, as the dark environment of the tower was becoming boring for him. However, he hadn't lost hope. Finally, he had scallions and a plastic bottle. He could use the transparent bottle as an improvised lens to create fire, just like in the first episode of Survivors in the Jungle. Yet, when he tried on his own, it didn't work. He burst into tears. He noticed some smoke starting to appear, but it wouldn't ignite. He didn't understand why it wasn't working. He thought he should blow on it a bit since he was sure that's how you make a fire. After much effort and a lot of blowing, it seemed like it might work. However, it just kept smoking. After a long time, the rabbits came out of their burrow. The female rabbit looked refreshed. Meanwhile, the male rabbit looked completely worn out. However, something caught their attention. They saw the young man trying to do something. He was blowing with all his might, begging for the fire to catch. The rabbit, upon seeing it, understood what he wanted. He asked the pair of rabbits if they could create wind on the leaves and showed them the bottle. The rabbit calmly went and blew very gently. The young man begged for it to work. He pleaded for the fire to ignite, and finally it caught. He realized it had worked. He felt proud and happy. Now he could grill some scallions and left a few over the fire. To check if they were ready, he peeled off the outer layer closest to the fire and enjoyed it. When he tasted it, it felt as if something was coursing through his body. He even saw colorful lights and stars. It was a sweetness akin to sugar, running wildly through his head. It felt like a green horse galloping across a vast green field inside his mouth. It was incredibly tasty, and he felt very satisfied. However, the female rabbit looked at her mate, who quickly understood. He grabbed a scallion and began heating it up for his beloved, and the two ate together. They, too, delighted in the taste and felt the galloping horses in their mouths. The young man told the rabbits they could eat as much as they wanted since there was plenty. After being lost for so long, he finally felt content with a warm meal and slept like an angel. After a long rest, he woke up, went to a spring, and washed his face. He looked at his crops and was surprised to see that the cherry tomatoes were looking beautiful. He thought the scallion harvest had already passed and had also watered the cherry tomatoes. He had already watered the sweet potatoes. Looking at his farm, he felt very satisfied. Many things had happened recently after he learned to make a fire using scallions for torches. With that, he could wander around more easily since the area near the post was very dark, and a torch helped a lot. However, with his scallion torch, he noticed something different. When he looked closely, a fish leaped out of the water toward the torch. Just seeing the torch made the fish jump out of the water. He was startled, as it was the first time he had seen a fish there. He thought it might have been attracted to the light, thus discovering a new food source. Now he could eat grilled fish wrapped in scallion leaves. When he tried it, he realized it was delicious. He found the meat juicy, and the aroma of the scallion added a lot of flavor. The rabbits' mouths watered, but the farmer, being kind, asked if they ate meat. He thought it didn't matter if they did. After all, in his mind, they were monsters and not like normal rabbits. A few days later, the blue moon occurred again, and because of this, he discovered the phenomenon happened every 30 days. He was using his laptop and an external battery to charge his phone and keep track of the days. However, he reached the limit and had to start counting days differently once the phone completely died. Fortunately, the rabbits went to sleep exactly at 7 p.m. and woke up at 5 a.m. He thought that if he followed their body clock, he wouldn't have issues with the absence of the sun. But a few days later, something amazing happened. The male rabbit left the burrow alone. Suddenly, a litter of baby rabbits dashed out crazily. That made the farmer very happy. They all jumped toward him, causing him to fall to the ground. The rabbit couple had many baby rabbits. The farmer called all the baby rabbits little ones, and when they disappeared, he missed them. He felt like the uncle of the rabbits, and that feeling left him satisfied. He noticed his rabbits looked tired. He thought taking care of all those little ones must have been hard work, so he said he would look after the baby rabbits. He decided to take a walk with the baby rabbits to the cherry tomato plantation, while their parents could take a break. When he arrived, the little rabbits got excited upon seeing the cherry tomato leaves with so many flowers. Park, looking at the flowers, realized the garden was flourishing, but for fruits to grow, pollination was necessary. So he decided to do it manually, artificially, one flower at a time. Afterward, he felt his body aching. It would be great if it became by, but it would be too greedy of me to expect something like that. After noticing the little rabbit sniffing the flower, the farmer chuckled at the small rabbit's action. Then he picked up the bunny and told it that it might be better not to breathe in pollen. However, he realized that in the spot where the bunny had sniffed and then sneezed, fruits had begun to grow. This caught his attention. After all that hard work, he had finally succeeded in getting a fruit, and he jumped with joy. This happened the day before the blue moon, and the sky there was as beautiful as ever. He decided to put out the fire to avoid attracting attention, made a scallion leaf outfit to camouflage himself and stay warm. He thought the phenomenon would occur soon, said goodbye to the little rabbits, and told them they would come later. He thought the blue moon would be a piece of cake, but when it began, he started to feel scared. He didn't want to stay on the rock he'd been on the previous day. He found it exhausting since it took so long to end. All he could do was keep everything hidden. He had already collected all the fragrant items and was lying in wait. However, he didn't know how many hours had passed. The screams he heard seemed distant, but even so, his body trembled with fear. All he wanted was for that night to end without major problems. However, he heard a different noise. Something enormous appeared near the cave entrance. A giant bear. Seeing it from below made it even worse. The bear noticed there was a plantation, and also a person. When the farmer saw the bear, he thought everything was over, as the bear stared into the cave. And seeing all of that, the bear salivated. The young man felt lucky not to have been noticed. He thought it best to hide. Before the massive bear could notice him, he tried to walk silently and slowly. Both his cherry tomatoes fell to the ground, and so did the plastic bottle. He also noticed his backpack was open. As a result, everything inside fell to the ground, drawing the bear's attention to his presence. The bear, already with its head inside the cave, looked inside. Park panicked and started screaming. The enraged bear roared back. It might have been angry or just trying to communicate. The fright was so overwhelming that he fainted, and all the little rabbits climbed onto him. He thought he was at home and asked his mother to let him sleep a bit longer. However, the rabbit had no patience and decided to give him a slap to wake him up. When he woke up, he was startled, thinking the bear was still nearby. He asked the rabbits what had happened and where the blue moon had gone. Then, pointing upward, the rabbit made him realize the blue moon had ended. Once again, everyone was safe. He realized he had fainted, and that's why his body was sore. He asked the rabbits what had happened, because when he saw the monster, and the monster looked into the cave, he got scared and started screaming along with the bear. He had nearly been killed by a monster, and now felt very cold. The female rabbit quickly prepared a fire to help the farmer. In just a few moments, the fire was lit, and he was covered with a scallion leaf blanket. The female rabbit, very concerned about him, caught a fish and cooked it in the way he liked. Park and the rabbits were quite satisfied. The mother rabbit gave attention to the little ones. However, the farmer was worried because the monster had discovered that place. He didn't know if it had sensed the presence of another monster. He felt lucky that time, but it could turn out differently any day. He was upset because he had worked so hard until that day. For now, all he could do was eat to survive. Suddenly, the rabbit caught his attention. A tomato had ripened, and it was blue. He was shocked when he saw the blue cherry tomato. It was already the size of a golf ball. He found the fruit to be of indescribable beauty, but had no idea why it had turned that color. He wasn't even sure if it was ripe or not. Just by holding it, the system activated. It notified the farmer that he had successfully completed the mission of harvesting a fruit containing the energy of the blue moon. He was startled when he received the first message from the system, which said his achievement had caught the attention of the tower's administrator. The message continued, saying that the tower's administrator was watching him and was not pleased. The young man didn't understand why the administrator might be unhappy with his actions. The system responded that the farmer was someone who had appeared uninvited. However, the tower administrator wanted to hide that mistake, and the young man was not at all pleased to know he was being treated this way. It had been 61 days since he arrived, and only after all that time was he informed that his presence was a mistake. He wanted help to return, but the administrator was considering whether to let him live or not. The farmer was upset because he had even unlocked an achievement, and instead of being rewarded, the plan was to eliminate him. The lack of response from the system made him think he might have overreacted. Then another message came, saying that the tower's administrator was awakening the farmer. Park didn't fully understand what it meant. It might signify he was officially being invited. His victory was significant enough that he would receive his own class, which he imagined could be swordsman, or even mage. He eagerly looked at the system to see what his class would be, and the class assigned to him by the tower administrator was Tower Farmer. That wasn't what he had hoped for. Due to his role, he wouldn't get sick and could synchronize with nature, gaining experience points by harvesting crops. He was disappointed and called up his attribute window. However, he realized he was a person with ordinary talent. No strength, no vitality, no stamina, and no magic. Classification: farmer, with no special skills. When he saw the attribute window, he was even more horrified. His dream felt like a nightmare. After seeing so much luxury and glamour on TV, he had thought he would experience the same, and everyone would know he had only a mediocre talent, and when he revealed his class, people would laugh at him. He was just a tower farmer, and even though it seemed magical, he had little expectation of it. He was so frustrated that he grabbed the fruit, thinking he didn't need it. Before throwing it to the ground, he looked at the rabbits and saw they seemed upset by his behavior. He realized he was being rude to the rabbits. He looked at his crops, the fireplace, and their burrow. He understood that this was his place and that they had worked together to cultivate that fruit. So, he told the rabbits he would continue farming, and when he examined the fruit more closely, the system showed him a window indicating it was a magical cherry tomato, infused with blue moon energy. It would permanently increase mana points by 0.05, and its shelf life was 30 days. He was amazed when he realized the tomato was an item. He was satisfied because, despite its small size, it increased attributes. He couldn't dismiss its value. He had managed to cultivate something so good. Unbeknownst to him, someone was watching everything happening in the cave through a magical orb, and that person didn't seem pleased, as they wanted to get rid of him. The farmer was happy because, thanks to the rabbits, he had come this far. While he was playing with the rabbits, another window opened, requesting that he offer the fruit to the administrator. He grew worried because he had received another mission and was afraid of failing. The consequences of failure were dire. He was scared but thought it might be a joke. It had to be. A new mission began. Offer the blue moon-infused fruit to the administrator. As a reward, he would receive a skill related to the farmer class. If he failed, he would be eliminated. However, the farmer didn't think it felt like a mission. It seemed more like blackmail. He thought it would be better to simply ask for it rather than pretending to give him a choice. This made him reflect on how little value a life held for the administrator, who was considering ending his. He bowed to the status window before him and offered the fruit, asking that his life be spared. The message changed, and he had successfully completed the mission. The reward was ready for him to claim. He remembered that a skill related to his class had been mentioned. Before opening it, he thought the administrator was very generous. But when he opened it, he wasn't very satisfied. His skill was level 1. He was saddened, as he had already forgotten that his class was Tower Farmer, but he decided to let it go. He lit a torch and went fishing to get food for later. When he caught the fish, its status indicated it was a piranha species, and capturing it earned him 2 experience points. He noticed that after awakening, he began gaining experience points by fishing several piranhas each day. Somehow, he reached level 2. He wanted to catch more but decided not to think about food unnecessarily. Once everything was ready, he called the rabbits to dine with him, and they quickly appeared. He asked the rabbits to start eating slowly since they had begun eating a lot as they grew. He thought he needed to leave some for their parents, and also managed to learn more about the rabbits. He found out that his rabbits were white farmer rabbits, and that was their identity. A type of monster he had never heard of before. Based on their name, he believed their species wasn't made for fighting. Instead, they specialized in farming rather than combat, which might be why nobody knew about them. But he assumed they had lost their farm, migrated, and somehow ended up there with him. He wondered if they had somewhere to return to. It would be nice if they did, although he couldn't understand it. He mentioned to them that they should start working because it was a very important day. The rabbit showed determination in its gaze. The cherry tomatoes were finally ready. They were so beautiful they filled both the farmer's and the rabbit's eyes with emotion. With tears in his eyes, Park was deeply moved because the time had come to harvest the fruits that had taken so much effort to grow. He was about to pick the fruits. His hand reached for the branch and started trembling with anxiety and excitement. The rabbit couple and their little ones were also feeling the tense atmosphere when the farmer finally picked the fruit. He raised it above his head, as it was the first cherry tomato, and he didn't even have to exert much force. With that, he gained experience points because it was a magical cherry tomato. This gave him 10 points, and these tomatoes burned 10 grams of fat while increasing mana points by 0.1. He concluded that if he ate 10 at once, he would increase his mana by 1 point. He also noticed that when he picked the wrong cherry tomato, he gained fewer experience points. It was then that he realized it wasn't an item but just an ordinary cherry tomato. He needed to harvest them at the right moment for them to become items. He thought it was harder than he had expected, After doing it correctly, he leveled up and earned bonus attribute points. That day, he had already reached level 4 and thought he had picked enough tomatoes. He decided it was time to taste one. But as he opened his mouth and looked to the side, all the baby rabbits were staring at him with angry faces. They also wanted to taste it. Since they had done everything together, they should eat together as well. He apologized and asked them not to be upset with him. The farmer suggested they celebrate the harvest. Since it had been successful, now was the time to fill their bellies, and he and the rabbits ate together. The feeling was as if he were lying on soft, green grass with fireworks lighting up the sky. It was a fresh, grassy fragrance combined with a sweet and tangy flavor that blended with the aroma. It felt like fire and fireworks in the middle of summer, and he and the rabbits experienced it together. Park was so happy that he cried, and the rabbits didn't understand his reaction. The female rabbit wanted to know if her husband understood why the boy seemed sad. However, they let it go and started working on storage. The rabbits passed the cherry tomatoes one by one. This made it easier to handle them all. Afterward, they placed the tomatoes in a stone-surrounded area. They began covering them with scallion leaves, which were also passed one by one among the little rabbits. Meanwhile, the farmer just watched his little ones working and noticed how much they had grown. They had grown so much that they could even help their parents with the tasks. They truly seemed like children of farmer rabbits. When sleep finally overtook him on his scallion leaf bed, with his scallion blanket and even a scallion container covering his feet, he was so tired that he fell asleep immediately. While he slept, a message appeared instructing him to offer 100 tomatoes. However, he didn't notice it as he was already deeply asleep. Still, the administrator wasn't pleased with this. It made a loud noise with the notification to alert him, and when he saw what it was about, he said he would offer some. He placed them in a vegetable-made container and offered them. Since he was being forced to do these tasks, at least it was useful. He gained a harvesting skill, allowing him to pick fruit before or after its time while ensuring it remained healthy. Annoyed, he didn't understand why he would need a skill for harvesting. However, he later noticed that the skill was better than he had initially thought. It had an effect and activated every time he harvested either too early or too late. Thanks to this, he could earn class points even when harvesting cherry tomatoes at the wrong time. Now he wouldn't have to wait for the perfect day. This made things much easier and faster. As he prepared to harvest a few more tomatoes, a message arrived. He needed to offer 200 tomatoes to the administrator. This time, no reward was mentioned, but he felt grateful because the last mission had helped him a lot. However, it seemed that this was only the beginning, as the administrator soon requested 250 cherry tomatoes. The demands kept growing. The next request was for 300, and the number kept climbing. Until one day, the administrator demanded 500 magical tomatoes with no reward and the threat of elimination if he failed. The farmer refused, which surprised the tower administrator, and on that day he rebelled. Even so, the administrator kept insisting, sending mission-related messages. This constant nagging drove the tower farmer to the edge, especially since the administrator had already taken resources that same day. This was despite the fact that the farmer, his rabbits, and their children needed food to survive. The administrator shifted the blame to the farmer, who didn't like that response. After all, he had worked hard and suffered for days to cultivate his crops. Even then, the administrator insisted that all he had done was plant seeds. Nothing could persuade the farmer to cooperate at that moment, especially as his skills were being questioned. The administrator, displeased with the farmer's reaction, continued sending messages. Even when the farmer was performing his tasks alongside the rabbit couple, the messages persisted. They even continued when Park was enjoying a friendly meal with his companions. The administrator kept trying to manipulate him like a puppet, ignoring his talents and contributions. Frustrated, the farmer declared he wouldn't give anything else, especially since he had been forced to comply before. He no longer felt obligated to complete missions without receiving proper rewards. Tired of the constant harassment, he told the administrator, "You're the boss, so you do it." All this trouble caused the administrator, who watched the farmer's reactions through a crystal ball, to swallow hard, knowing that this farmer would cause him much more work. Now, all the great dragon could do was sit in front of his crystal ball and watch. Seeing the farmer eat the cherry tomatoes left him furious, as the farmer was not completing the mission. Even after sending angry messages, the protagonist ignored him. However, despite being angry with the administrator, the farmer, with his kind heart, decided to share. He gave him 5 tomatoes and promised to deliver the rest later, as he also needed to feed the children. Even though it was a small amount, the tower administrator revealed that the farmer had shared some tomatoes. The young man was satisfied to see the message screen disappear and imagined the administrator might apologize. Looking up at the sky, he thought the tower administrator was simpler than he had imagined. It was day 91 in the tower, and the 4th blue moon was about to rise. the farmer began fantasizing about various things as he sat in a corner eating his tomatoes. He had heard stories of people with high mana levels who could endure the roars of certain monsters. Park hoped such an event wouldn't happen again and wished for everything to pass quickly. Soon, the blue moon was high in the sky, and its intense light was helping the tomatoes germinate better. The farmer noticed that the moon's blue light was speeding up the growth of the cherry tomatoes. He was very pleased to see a magical fruit forming and felt he needed to harvest it. But his astonishment grew when he realized the blue moonlight was also affecting the sweet potato vines. He felt satisfied as the sweet potato leaves were illuminated by the blue moonlight. He needed to check it out quickly. With newfound courage, he approached the sweet potato plant and began digging. He discovered that the sweet potato's fruit was different and, according to the notification, incredibly delicious. It could also provide a strength boost and permanently increase mana points by 0.05. As he pulled it from the soil, he held it up as if it were a precious trophy, noting that his harvesting proficiency had improved. He was also rewarded with 50 experience points, though he still needed to collect the tomato fruit. When illuminated by the blue light, it transformed into a blue tomato, becoming a magical fruit. With the fruits from both harvests, he felt as though the world was in his hands. However, the greedy tower administrator was already showing interest in the fruits. Thus, he issued 2 new missions, one related to the tomato fruit and the other to the sweet potato. Both missions were assigned at the same time. His greed had greatly increased this time. Quickly, the farmer decided to finish the previous mission, thinking it might minimize the demands. The tower administrator was satisfied with the basket of cherry tomatoes, but he still wanted to know about the other 2 missions. The farmer asked if he could wait a bit, promising to deliver them later. Looking at both hands holding the fruits, he didn't even know what to do first. Then he decided to eat the tomato fruit. He chewed it and felt an incredible sensation. It was an unparalleled sweetness combined with a refreshing flavor, like a festival in his mouth. With that, he gained a permanent increase of 0.05 mana points. But he couldn't hold back anymore and decided to roast the sweet potato. It was a pity he couldn't prepare it properly. He thought that's what the scallion leaves were for, and as expected, waiting for the food to be ready was always a blessing. With that chef-like feeling, the young man didn't notice the blue moonlight fading quickly. However, the rabbits noticed and came out of their burrows, enchanted by the aroma. The farmer remarked that they had come out at just the right moment. Proudly, he presented the sweet potato infused with the blue moon's energy to everyone. The rabbit couple and their little ones watched. All of them were drooling with anticipation, and the young man announced they would eat it together. But something unusual happened. The male rabbit stood in front of the farmer, seemingly asking his wife and children not to eat. He continued explaining that the food was scarce and that only the human should eat it. This behavior caught the young man by surprise, as he realized the rabbit wanted him to eat it alone. It was clear that only the father rabbit genuinely cared about the farmer. Still, the farmer felt guilty because he had already eaten a cherry tomato on his own. Nevertheless, he decided to follow the rabbit's suggestion and eat the sweet potato. As he took a bite, he felt a burning sensation. It was so intense that he couldn't hold the sweet potato any longer and dropped it. The rabbit slowly watched the sweet potato fall to the ground. He thought he might have the chance to taste a piece, but the little rabbits were quicker and heavier. However, they couldn't hold the sweet potato in their mouths either, as the sensation was too unpleasant. They all spat out the sweet potato, its taste overwhelmingly spicy. The father rabbit was disheartened, having missed the chance to taste it, while the farmer regretted the flavor of the sweet potato. He felt that, on that day, he had eaten something extremely hot. The next day, the farmer gathered his team and announced they would begin planting sweet potato sprouts. The little rabbits, who were trying to nibble on the sprouts, lay on the ground as they listened to the farmer's prohibition. He told them they couldn't keep eating the sprouts since they were needed for planting. The young rabbits were startled, but they continued chewing the sprouts anyway. He mentioned that sweet potato sprouts were the baby rabbit's favorite food, but there was no point in complaining. If things continued like this, nothing would be left since they ate all day long. The solution was to start planting super delicious sweet potatoes to be eaten only at dinner. He decided to expand the sweet potato plantation area and promised the little rabbits special snacks. This motivated them to help the farmer with the extra sweet potato planting, and they quickly got to work. He asked the female rabbit to leave one onion standing so he could harvest seeds as it flowered. He believed that the more they planted, the higher the chance of them becoming items, and he noticed how quickly the rabbits dug. They planted the sprouts efficiently, with everyone putting in a lot of effort. As the little rabbits planted the sweet potato sprouts, the mother rabbit followed with her magical watering can, doing her part. Occasionally, a little rabbit would glance to the side, pretending not to care, and slyly make a modification. But whenever this happened, the father rabbit would quickly notice and scold the little one for trying to be sneaky. Meanwhile, the farmer harvested more cherry tomatoes for dinner, and his harvesting points steadily increased. He was a level E tower farmer, and had already advanced from level F, as his skills had been enhanced. He was now at level 8, and his class had improved. At this pace, he could keep planting forever. He called the little rabbits for a snack and began making a type of cherry tomato skewer. However, the tower administrator was spying on what the farmer had been doing throughout the day. The farmer noted this, reprimanded the administrator in his thoughts, and continued preparing the meal. Once it was ready, he called the rabbits to enjoy it. They all became excited. Thus, the farmer announced the special grilled cherry tomato skewers. Everyone was satisfied. The farmer used fish bones, thoroughly cleaned and dried, to skewer the tomatoes. This delighted all the rabbits, who received their tomato skewers happily. The farmer informed the rabbits that they had planted enough sweet potato sprouts, and now needed to dig up the sweet potatoes. He wanted to check how they were. When they unearthed one, he saw that a single sprout yielded many sweet potatoes. Upon lifting it, it was revealed to be a sweet potato cultivated inside the tower, nutritious and flavorful. Its properties went beyond that. It could consume 10 g of body fat and increase strength by 0.1 for 10 minutes. After the harvest, they found 15 sweet potatoes, 5 from each root. That was quite a lot for their first harvest. He reused the sweet potato sprouts for replanting, thinking it would be a waste not to. Just doing that slightly increased his level 1 planting proficiency. It was then that the farmer realized he needed to plant everything himself to level up and asked the rabbits to stop helping. Elsewhere in the tower, the administrator was busy with something when he noticed what the farmer had done. He decided to try making his own cherry tomato skewer. However, it turned out bitter. He couldn't figure out what went wrong since the human skewers seemed delicious. He decided to spy on the farmer to see what he was doing wrong and, with a malicious grin, began observing. But all he saw was the farmer sitting, eating, and petting the little rabbits. The administrator found this unacceptable and noticed they were eating sweet potatoes without him. This deeply upset the great black dragon Aileen Furtani, who felt he couldn't be treated that way. Just as the farmer thought he could relax, a new mission was added. He was tasked with offering baked sweet potatoes to the tower administrator, with no reward, and failure meant death. Park Sejun was far from pleased with the message and said he would do it later. Messages continued to pour in. The administrator was insistent and wanted baked sweet potatoes. The farmer stated he only had one left and might trade it if there was a reward. The tower administrator then revised the mission to include a reward related to the farmer class. With that, the farmer offered the sweet potato, completed the mission, and decided to open his reward. The reward was a level 1 seed shop, allowing him to purchase seeds once every 30 days. This left the farmer completely satisfied because he could now buy seeds within the tower. He immediately activated the seed shop and noted there was no purchase history. He also realized he didn't know how to buy seeds since he had no money and wondered how he could trade. Apparently, someone had deposited 1 coin into the farmer's seed account. He thought the shop staff were very generous and considered them the best. He decided to check out the shop. The seeds came in 3 quality levels and were chosen randomly. The day's offerings were seeds for red bell peppers, cabbage, or carrots. However, as the name suggested, the shop only sold seeds, and each one cost 1 tower coin. He considered choosing bell pepper or cabbage but was unsure since he couldn't make kimchi. The remaining option was carrots. When he mentioned this, all the rabbits became alarmed. Noticing their reaction, he asked the rabbits if they liked carrots. The sparkle in their eyes lit up the cave even more. He encouraged them to voice their choice, and they all shouted that they wanted carrots. The rabbit enjoyed the excitement. The farmer successfully purchased carrot seeds, and the seed packet was very fancy. The farmer thought the packaging itself might be worth more than the seeds but remained cautious. As soon as he read the message, the tower administrator seemed pleased with the farmer's recent purchase. And another day had passed in the tower, and he called everyone to start planting carrots. A bee observed from a distance while he was pleased to have obtained carrot seeds. The bee appeared but seemed quite wary at first, afraid it wouldn't be welcomed. After planting the carrot seeds, everyone was resting, and the rabbit couple seemed to admire the moment. They were also in a romantic phase, showing affection to one another. The farmer knew it had been a few days since planting the carrots, even though the seeds hadn't sprouted yet. Feeling tired, he decided to take a nap, as he planned to pollinate the flowers and harvest scallions later. But he heard a buzzing sound, waved his hand to make it stop, and got annoyed enough to stand up. Frustrated, he wanted to know where the insects had come from, but then he realized it was a beautiful bee. It was looking at him as if puzzled by his anger, and simply flew away. At first, his reaction was satisfactory. He thought the bee was cute but also suspected it was a monster in insect form. He decided to name her, but upon closer inspection, it quickly became evident that she was a venomous bee. This left him embarrassed and apprehensive, and he warned everyone that it could be dangerous. The rabbits understood his warning and immediately ran away, leaving him behind. He shouted that the rabbits were cowards for abandoning him. The tower administrator explained that venomous bees were carnivorous creatures that hunted monsters with their poisonous stings. He added that their stingers were extremely dangerous, and that avoiding them was the best course of action. This made the farmer run in fear of the bee, shouting that he wasn't tasty. As he ran, he accidentally hit a branch on the tomato plant, breaking it. Frightened, he picked up the first thing he found on the ground and held it in front of his face to protect himself. The bee noticed the branch with flowers and seemed pleased. Her eyes changed color as soon as she saw the blossoms. Curious but still afraid, he opened one eye to see the bee's reaction. She was behaving normally, entering and exiting the flower, her face glowing with happiness. He was annoyed with the administrator, thinking he was being tricked. How could a carnivorous bee behave like that? He told the bee that if she was hungry, she could eat the other flowers and showed her all the blossoms on the tomato plant. He told her, "Go ahead, Belinia, enjoy without fear." He realized that, at this pace, he wouldn't need to keep pollinating. The rabbits, still hiding behind the rock, ignored the farmer's dissatisfaction and asked if they had the courage to return. All the baby rabbits, along with their parents, hugged the farmer's legs as he pretended to stay angry. The bee came close to him again, and he asked if she was finished. If she wasn't full yet, he asked her not to come too close, as he was still apprehensive. After all her hard work, the bee grew tired and decided to make a little nest on his shirt to sleep. When she fell asleep, he found her reaction adorable and asked if she wasn't going to sting him. He observed how his family was growing and how well his tomato plantation was doing. He continued marking the days on the rock and noted that 120 days had passed since he got lost. The hard work persisted with the rabbits, baby rabbits, and the bee, all contributing tirelessly. The little ones were playful, and sometimes he got annoyed, asking them to play elsewhere. He thought it was necessary for the baby rabbits to enjoy their youth. The farmer had grown accustomed to the bee, who always perched on his shoulder after finishing her tasks. Several weeks had passed since the venomous bee arrived. She worked in the morning, collecting nectar, and returned to the forest outside the cave in the afternoon. After the morning's hard work, he called everyone for lunch. He was worried about the bee because she might be returning to her group. A few days ago, she began producing honey, and he used it to make grilled onions with honey. He thought it was delicious. The baby rabbits loved it too, and the bee felt proud to help. He told Belinia that, at first, he panicked because he thought she was dangerous, but he eventually got used to her. He joked that in a few months, he'd have so much honey that even bears would be jealous. However, the thought of the blue moon returning made him quite anxious. He always expected problems from it, and hoped nothing would happen this time. He decided to store enough food to last the duration since the bee had stopped leaving the area. You should also be preparing for the blue moon that was about to happen. The pair of rabbits and their bunnies seemed more nervous than usual, and the problem was that it was almost time. He asked everyone to go into the burrow and hide. Everyone hugged the rabbits, who seemed strange. The father and mother hugged their little ones as if they were saying goodbye and then ran, leaving them completely exposed to the blue moonlight and immediately retreating into the burrow. At the entrance, they joyfully bid farewell to the little ones and the farmer. He was astonished that the rabbits had left their offspring behind like that. However, it was already too late. The blue moon was at its peak, and the small, beautiful rabbits transformed into frightening monsters that growled as if they wanted to devour someone. The farmer had no idea what was happening. Not understanding what was going on, he was terrified. He never imagined that the little rabbits could turn into such large, monstrous beings. It was evident that they were being affected by the blue moonlight, which made the rabbits completely lose their senses. They started glowing so brightly that the young man turned his face away, feeling they might attack him at any moment. But when he looked back, they were surrounding the blue light and transforming. He noticed that they had gone through puberty and were now adult rabbits. Even their colors had changed. It was the 5th blue moon since they were born. It was as if it were a rite of passage. He was satisfied and emotional. He began crying like a child, thinking something terrible might have happened to them. Seeing that he was upset, one of the bunnies, which had turned black, approached him to try to ease his distress. The farmer held the black rabbit's white paw and began kissing it, saying this was the punishment for being so adorable. While chasing the black and white rabbits around to kiss them, he didn't even notice that the blue moon had passed. As soon as it did, the rabbit couple emerged from the burrow, and the farmer announced they were fine and could reunite. He was so happy that he decided to prepare a celebratory feast. He also noticed that one of the rabbits, upon becoming an adult, gained an item. The rabbit, satisfied, raised its paw, holding a shovel. They all had different items. He observed they had gained tools like rakes, carts, shovels, and scythes. Each had an item related to farming. He realized that when they became adult rabbits, they received their own items. He noticed one of the rabbits hadn't received an accessory. However, it raised its paw. It revealed a large hammer, and the farmer remarked that it wasn't a tool for farming. That was because it was a black warrior rabbit, not a farmer like the others. The rabbits began using their items to help with planting. With their new tools, the process became much faster. Everything was happening on a large scale. The farmer was satisfied with the new help he was getting, as the little ones were no longer just playing around. Once again, the farmer became emotional, seeing that the little ones were now helping their parents on the farm. But he couldn't stop seeing them as babies who used to run and play everywhere. In the burrow, while all the other rabbits worked hard, the black rabbit just watched. It stayed near its hammer, eating, since there was nothing else to do. But the farmer noticed the rabbit was bored. Since there were no monsters troubling the farm, it had no one to fight. And the hammer wasn't a farming tool. The farmer thought he should find something for it to do. Then he suggested the rabbit could go hunting at the lake. Hunting was a type of battle, so it could help. The farmer would attract the piranhas with a torch, and the rabbit would catch them with its warrior hammer. The farmer began using an onion torch as bait to lure the fish out so the rabbit could easily hammer them. The warrior rabbit demonstrated great skill with the hammer and began striking. Its blows were precise and accurate, just as expected from a warrior rabbit. On the first try, it used too much force. The farmer observed that it should hammer with a bit more gentleness. When the farmer served the fish caught by the warrior rabbit, the little rabbit seemed sad to see that instead of catching a fish, it was serving one. But the farmer assured it that with a little practice, it would get the hang of it. Gradually, the rabbits got used to their roles, and on day 125, the seed shop reopened. The farmer could choose 3 types of random seeds. However, at the current level, he could only buy one of them. The choices were watermelon seeds, pumpkin seeds, and corn. The farmer was complaining that the prices this time were completely different from the last time he bought them. He only had 9 coins and could only afford to buy the corn seeds. There was nothing else he could do. Moreover, he didn't know what he could do to get more coins. He knew there was a reward for finishing the floor. Although it was a good amount, he could only receive 1 reward per floor. Because of this, the hunter's profit margins weren't very high. The second method was hunting monsters and selling the monster parts to merchants or shops on the first floor. That was the best way for hunters to profit, as they could continue earning consistently. However, there was a third method, which was completing missions to earn rewards. The mission rewards varied a lot, and it was hard to earn coins. Among 3 options that completed the floor, it was impossible. The only option left was the missions given to him by the tower administrator. He asked if the tower administrator could hear him and if he could reward him with coins. However, the administrator replied that he didn't understand. Maybe he would when he grew up. He wanted to know how old the tower administrator was, and he replied that it was a secret. He changed the question and asked how many years it would take for him to grow up. The administrator said he would need to wait 300 years. That answer didn't satisfy the farmer at all, as he didn't want to wait that long. The worst part was that the farmer was always the one to lose when he got angry. He decided to just prioritize what he could do for his own survival. The only item he could buy was a corn seed, and he was going to buy it. He thought it could be delicious steamed or grilled. It could also be ground into flour. This made him choose the corn seed. Out of the 9 coins he had, 5 were deducted for purchasing the corn seeds. He asked the rabbits what they thought. He was sure they all liked the idea. But just talking about food made him hungry. Before planting the seeds, he thought he should eat a little more. By that time, the warrior rabbit had already become more skilled at helping with fishing. They were all satisfied and well fed when the little bee arrived. She was warmly welcomed since it had been a while since she last appeared. He told her it was fine, she could return whenever she wanted, and he would be happy. Another noise startled the little bee, detected by her antennae, making her fly away. It also put the warrior rabbit into an attack stance, thinking a monster was approaching. Someone above said, "Please don't misunderstand. I'm not a shameless cat stealing your food." The farmer wanted to know why a cat would be there, and the cat decided to come out from behind the bush and jump in. When he did, the farmer noticed it was just a cat extending his paw and saying, "Hello?" He asked if, by any chance, he was the client Park Sejun. The cat introduced himself, as he was a merchant. And that day, the farmer met Theo, the merchant cat. He was a yellow cat with a green cape. Park Sejun was startled to see the merchant cat. He had heard it was possible to encounter one while climbing the tower. However, he hadn't imagined merchant cats existed, and this one had shining eyes. His cheeks were chubby and soft, and the cat offered his paw to greet the client. The farmer thought it had to be cheating. This was a scam because he loved cats so much. However, the farmer tried to react in a way that the cat wouldn't notice his love for felines. The cat said he showed up because he heard about a rookie who had shopped at the seed store. That's why he decided to greet him and do business, opening the backpack he carried with him. While doing so, he told the farmer he had an item he might really like. While he did that, his stomach growled loudly because he hadn't eaten anything that day. He apologized to the young man for his embarrassing behavior in front of a client. Park Sejun noticed the cat was quite embarrassed, and realized it was the perfect opportunity to bond with him. He had a brilliant idea and invited the cat to eat some grilled fish. The cat couldn't resist. The cat owed him, knowing what he wanted, but the cat said it wasn't necessary, that he couldn't touch the client's food. But the farmer was persistent and asked if the smell of sweet, tender meat grilled over the fire didn't tempt him, and he urged him to eat a little so he wouldn't miss the chance to try it. The cat couldn't resist. He changed his mind, and despite everything, he was feeling satisfied. He lay on the ground beside the farmer, who asked if he hadn't eaten in days, as he had devoured 5 fish. The cat composed himself, stood up, thanked the farmer for his hospitality, and said he didn't know how to repay him. The cat then said they could move on to business. The farmer, extending his hand toward the cat, said it was 5 coins. The young farmer informed him that he needed to pay for the roasted fish he had eaten. The cat was startled, as he thought it was free. However, Park Seo-joon explained that nothing in the world is free. Moreover, he was there for business and asked if he had planned to eat the client's fish and then try to run away. Seeing the black warrior rabbit with a huge hammer, the cat realized he had no choice but to pay for the fish. The farmer was very satisfied, as he had earned 5 more coins, while the cat felt tricked. He had come there intending to take money from the client, but instead, he was the one who lost money. He thought his venture had already started in the red, but he couldn't be defeated so easily. He said it was now his turn and asked them to look at what he was offering. He displayed the success of the other floors: a cup, a fan, and a hand warmer. Each cost 5 coins. The young farmer quickly noticed that these were items from outside the burrow. The cat was pleased he had noticed. The cat explained that the bottle had magical preservation. It kept hot or cold items at their original temperature. And the mini fan was enchanted. You could press the button whenever needed. However, the farmer said all the items the cat brought were just trash. The cat didn't like hearing that his merchandise was trash. He argued that these were items from outside the tower and that the farmer couldn't recognize their value. Then the farmer revealed that he was also from outside the tower, and the cat's ears drooped. He demonstrated that the cup wasn't magical at all. It was just a thermos bottle that preserved temperature. And if the mini fan or hand warmer were used for a few hours, they would stop working because the battery would run out. Crying, the cat said it wasn't true because Scarum had assured him these were magical items. The cat realized the farmer was telling the truth when the mini fan stopped working due to a dead battery. Park Seo-joon apologized but said the cat had been deceived by the person who sold him those items. The cat thought it was impossible, as the seller was such a kind and friendly person. He began crying, calling Scarum a terrible goblin who always tricked him. The young farmer asked Theo if he could explain what was going on. Theo explained that he was from the 75th floor, one of the neutral zones of the tower. For a long time, he had admired Meryl, the most beautiful girl. Whenever he could, he gave Meryl a bouquet of sardines to show his affection for her. But she didn't like the smell of cheap fish and often threw them on the ground. One day, when she did that, he asked why she had done it, as he had worked hard to get the fish. Then the son of the richest cat in the village arrived. At that moment, he told Theo to know his place. Oren commented that he shouldn't give low-quality fish to such a fine lady. Offering her a salmon, she liked it, even though she had previously said she didn't want to gain weight. Theo cried as he saw her accept the fatty salmon while rejecting his sardines. He had to watch as the son of the richest cat in the village took the most beautiful girl away. Even so, he asked her to wait. Holding his briefcase, he asked what she would do with all the memories of their time together. Holding her paw and looking into her eyes, he asked if none of it had been real. Oren interrupted and told him that it was all simply a lie. She loved him instead. Theo couldn't believe it, and asked Meryl to look into his eyes and swear she had never felt the same. He remembered the beautiful moments they shared when walking in the forest among the flowers. However, his beloved harshly pulled her paw away from him. With a firm gaze, treating his presence with disdain, she told him to see reality, as he was nothing more than a stray cat. She said she had only smiled at him once or twice, and that was enough for him to start daydreaming. Cruelly honest, she said she hated poor cats who smelled like cheap sardines. After that, his beloved was taken away by the richest cat in the village, the son of the most powerful cat in that place. Humiliated, he decided to leave with everything he had and become a merchant, determined to get rich and seek his revenge. Sadly, he explained that he had even purchased a merchant's license and the necessary equipment to become one. He used everything he had saved for a long time, all 50 of his coins. He was going to buy something from the traveling vendor to sell. With the 5 coins he had left, Scarum appeared, and he said that if there were any doubts, he could talk to him. It was at that place that he met Scarum. Scarum immediately offered items from outside the tower, claiming they were valuable and that, if he took them to higher levels, he could get rich. He explained that the creatures on the upper floors collected those items as a sort of hobby. At first, the cat was suspicious of why he was selling such high-quality items so cheaply, but Scarum said it was because he liked the cat a lot and wanted to help out of goodwill. After that, he added that if the cat didn't want them, he would keep everything for himself and sell them to another merchant. He said he was in a good mood and even gave him a map with the location of a new client for the seed shop. Since it was a novice, he could make quite a profit if he was lucky. Scarum added that, since he was providing useful information, all the beer the two drank would be on the cat's tab. Theo, satisfied, thanked him. Through tears, Theo told the farmer that he gave all his money to Scarum to pay for the items. Hoping to sell the items, he nearly starved and barely managed to make it back. Now he was rolling on the ground, crying because everything he had sold was trash. To make things worse, the client barely took the remainder of his money, and now he felt completely useless. The farmer paused for a moment and felt sadness at the cat's lack of intelligence, but he had an idea. He had just thought of a way to help the poor kitten, and they could also earn coins in that tower. He told the kitten to calm down because he could cheer up by eating some more grilled fish. The cat, in turn, asked if he was offering fish only to charge him later. The farmer said that if he stayed, he might even consider giving his coins back. But in exchange, he would ask him to work with him, and that day he found a partner. He eagerly awaited Theo's response. Theo was surprised by the offer to work together. The farmer said he could sell his goods, but the cat didn't think he was good enough for that. He asked if the farmer hadn't listened to the story he just told. He thought he was nothing more than a novice, useless merchant. The farmer then said that the cat had convinced him to become his partner through the story he shared. He insisted they become business partners and called everyone over. Meanwhile, the rabbit and the bunny prepared a suitable place for the two to discuss their business. The two of them were treated like royalty to facilitate the negotiations with the cat. Park commented that he had no more money to continue his business because he had been scammed. The farmer said that was precisely why he was making a business offer that could be advantageous for both of them. It was simple. The cat would take the items and sell them to others, and he would offer a percentage of the profits. The cat would need to sell the items at a higher price than he chose, thus earning profits and his incentive. The farmer told the cat that he could sell them at a much higher price since he was born for this, and so, he would get 3 to 5% of the value of the items he sold. Meanwhile, the rabbits continued grilling fish. The cat, head down, thought that this commission was very low, and the deal was terrible for him. He thought the farmer considered him stupid just because he had made a mistake. Then the farmer said he had forgotten to mention the most important part, and asked the group to bring something to him. He said their agreement didn't end there. He would pay with 10 grilled fish, or the equivalent in coins every week. The cat, looking at the fish and already salivating, asked if he would really get the grilled fish. The farmer explained that he would if he signed the contract with him, but the cat was hesitant. Having been made a fool of in the past, he was determined to be smart and not be deceived again. However, he continued to salivate at the sweet, tender smell of the grilled fish. He made a counteroffer. If the farmer gave him 20 fish, he would consider it. Park Sejun liked his reaction and said it was fine since he was in a good mood. He wouldn't just give him 20 fish. He would also add 5 more than he had asked for and place them all on a rock. The cat realized he would receive 25 grilled fish and was extremely satisfied. Park told him that, in addition to the weekly payment, he could eat as many fish as he wanted, and those words won the cat's heart. He had never heard such a thing from anyone. That human told him he could eat as much as he liked. Then he asked if the cat had some paper. The cat said he did and asked him to wait a moment. He handed over a piece of paper and a quill, and they drew up a contract that both signed with their fingerprints. However, the cat didn't realize he was signing a contract because he was too excited about the fish. Even though he was thrilled, when told the paper should wait and come back later, that's not what happened. The contract vanished, and a message appeared, validating the agreement between them and displaying their signed fingerprints. Park had heard that contracts were very important documents within the tower. The cat questioned the 4th clause, which was linked to a special condition involving accents. It was embarrassing for him to use the cat dialect. The farmer said he would understand when the time came. However, Theo was upset, especially about the first clause under special conditions. It meant that if he didn't sell well, the contract could end, but the farmer said he believed in him. The feline was pleased to be called Theo, the ingenious merchant. He wanted to know what the farmer wanted to sell. The farmer said it was cherry tomatoes. The cat widened his eyes at the mention of the product but was invited to see it in person. At the cherry tomato plantation, the tower resident plucked one and handed it to the cat, who asked what it was. A magical cherry tomato that increased his mana by 0.1 for 10 minutes. He asked how much the farmer intended to sell each one for, thinking he could get 0.01 tower coins each. However, the farmer wanted 0.05 for each. The cat thought no one would buy them at that price. But then he considered that it might be better this way, as he wouldn't sell any, and the contract would end. Meanwhile, he could eat fish. Theo asked how many he should take since it was the first sale under the contract. The rabbits had already prepared 1,000 units in a basket ready for resale. The farmer had also prepared the cat's 25 grilled fish for the week. The cat wondered how he could carry it all. However, he had an item called the Big Pack. It had preservation magic and space extension magic, making everything lightweight. Saying this, he threw what looked like a normal cloth over the tomatoes and fish. Magically, everything was absorbed into the cloth, which turned into a small, lightweight backpack. He placed it under his green cloak. The farmer thought it was very convenient. The cat, now with his sales goods and food stock, announced he was leaving. When he was already high up in the cave, he waved to the farmer, who had the warrior rabbit on his shoulder. A few days later, on the 38th floor of the tower, some fighters were having a hard time with a giant spider. The arachnid monster seemed to have an easy time defeating the fighters. With some effort, others joined them, and using fireball magic, they managed to assist the fighters. After seeing the mages contain the arachnid, one of them was able to deliver the fatal blow with his sword. That fighter was Kim Dongshik, leader of the Phoenix Guild, and anyone watching knew he would finish it that way. He was angry, instructing the group to get ready to leave. His warning was especially directed at Jessica, who seemed to have caused trouble earlier. However, the guild leader noticed some movement. Preparing to attack, he only calmed down when he realized it was a cat. Raising his paw, the cat asked the human to stay calm. He just wanted to offer some products. When they realized it was the merchant, they approached him. The cat said it was a pleasure to meet them all. The girls in the group heard the cat say, "Meow," thought it was very cute, and noticed his little paws. At that moment, Theo remembered the farmer's words, that he could only use the cat dialect when speaking with humans. He placed the basket of cherry tomatoes before them and asked them to look at what he had for sale. At first, the goods didn't appeal to anyone, as they asked if it was simply cherry tomatoes. They were disappointed, thinking he had come just to sell food and believing it should have been a better snack. He explained that these were magical and special tomatoes and asked them to analyze them first. The humans were shocked by the cat's leadership and realized it was an actual item. They noticed it increased mana points by 0.01 for 10 minutes and thought that was quite low, but they asked about the price. When the cat said it was 0.05 coins per unit, they were outraged. They preferred buying equipment over spending coins on tomatoes and told him to leave, claiming it was a waste of time. But one girl noticed that eating one could reduce 10 g of fat, and that caught her attention. She shouted that she would lose 10 g of fat, drawing the attention of the other girls in the group. They got excited when they realized they could lose weight just by eating. They could eat 10 every hour, and they quickly began fighting over who would buy the most. Meanwhile, the men looked at each other, puzzled about why the girls were fighting so hard over tomatoes. For better organization, the cat asked them to form a line, while the men debated whether they should buy some too. The farmer, as he harvested the fruits, thought the cat might be doing well. He figured the cat must have met the hunters by now. He knew that, at first glance, magical tomatoes might seem like an item to boost magic, but they automatically dissolved 10 g of fat and revitalized the body. And the best part was that they had no side effects and were super tasty too. He was confident in his product and knew the cat would do well because the farmer trusted in the land's diet. The cat sold everything and could hardly believe it. He didn't understand how humans could be so foolish as to buy so many tomatoes. The farmer noticed that, out of the 1,000 carrot seeds he bought from the shop, 70% had germinated. And out of the 1,200 magical cherry tomato seeds he planted after the harvest, only 732 had sprouted and grown. The germination rate for corn and sweet potato seeds bought from the seed shop was around 60% to 70%. The germination rate for carrots and cherry tomatoes was quite similar, and it would be great if more germinated. Maybe it would improve when he leveled up, or perhaps the soil inside the cave wasn't very fertile. But he decided to continue as is for now. Later, he might find a better way to cultivate. Now that they had Theo to help with tower coins, they just needed to harvest as much as possible. Looking back, he noticed the black rabbit was hunting piranhas again. He was doing it alone, tossing the green onion torch into the air and waiting by the edge for the right moment. When the fish leapt out fiercely to eat the torch, he jumped with his hammer and struck them all. One after another, they fell to the ground, and he even managed to hold the torch aloft afterward. The farmer congratulated the black rabbit, noting that he was improving daily in his hunting role. He also noticed the black rabbit's body started glowing, thinking he must have leveled up. Satisfied, he praised the rabbit, as the others had leveled up several times while planting. This was the first time the black rabbit had leveled up, and he was gradually becoming a true hunter. Park Sejun thought it would be nice to take a break for a moment to drink some coffee. Neither the rabbit nor the goblin who tricked him noticed what was in the thermal cup. He thought that if he had sold the coffee, he would have spent all the money buying more. He was pleased because, thanks to the naivety of the two, he had gotten this beauty for free. He opened a sachet and poured it into his plastic bottle with a bit of water. It was a pity he didn't have proper utensils. He relied on the help of his little bee, who added some honey to the bottle to sweeten the coffee a bit. And so, he created the Melicano, a mix of instant coffee, fresh cave water, and venomous bee honey. With just one sip, that mixture could relieve fatigue and hunger, and he found it very delicious. He asked the rabbits if they wanted to try some, and the black rabbit, the bravest fighter, tasted a bit. He didn't like the taste one bit, nor did the others. Seeing the little bee, he greeted her and noticed she had built a hive on the cave ceiling. He asked if she had decided to live with them permanently. It was sad to see her leave for home each time. Now they felt like a family, and he said the news was so good that he wanted to throw a party. A new mission appeared. He had to offer 10 cherry tomatoes to the administrator. The farmer thought that by delaying the mission, he had realized there was an arrangement between him and the cat. Even the threats had changed. It was no longer, "Offer or be eliminated." Now, the administrator asked for the tomatoes with a sad expression. Park Sejun decided to give him some tomatoes, and the administrator thanked him, feeling satisfied with his kindness. Park Sejun was pleased when the administrator expressed gratitude. Now he felt truly recognized. Marcia felt sad, just like the cat, realizing she had acted like a sycophant. In a faraway place, the goblin who had tricked the cat was upset because the cat hadn't returned yet. His friends asked if he was talking about the sycophantic cat who wanted to buy sweets from him last time. That goblin was very cunning. The cat spent all his money buying items that were hard to sell. The goblin was already planning his next scam for the poor cat when he came back. He intended to buy a jar of milk and tell the cat about a unique opportunity to borrow money from him. That way, the poor kitten would have to work hard to repay the loan. But he would never manage to pay off the original debt because of the endless interest. In the end, the goblin planned to make him a permanent slave. Scaram's friends thought he was a genius. Even though his friends wanted to look for the cat immediately, Scaram said they shouldn't rush. In the meantime, he decided to check the sales rankings for merchants that day. He was satisfied to see he had made it into the top 1,000, holding position 999, while some of his friends weren't even ranked. As he scrolled, he thought it was worth extracting coins from sycophants and observing the people ranked near him. But something there deeply unsettled him. He couldn't believe it was true. Something didn't make sense. The innocent cat they had been talking about earlier, Theo, was on the ranking. Theo's position was 982, with 50 coins, and he was a newcomer to the list. Scaram's friends confirmed it was indeed that cat. Furious, Scaram slammed the table, convinced there was no way Theo could have sold that junk. This led him to believe the cat was up to something, and he was determined to find out what. Meanwhile, the cat was satisfied and had just returned to the cave. He called out to the farmer, who asked where he had been. The cat apologized and said he wouldn't have fun on another floor next time. The farmer asked how many days he had spent having fun. The cat admitted it was 4 days. The farmer found it strange since the cat had said it would take about 10 days to reach the 30th floor. He asked the cat if he still had time to spend 4 days enjoying himself. The farmer thought it would take a few days to sell everything, but the cat was back in just 4 days. This could only mean he sold everything as soon as he arrived. So, the farmer called the cat, placing a hand on his shoulder. He told him that if he didn't want to see the dark side of the force, he should immediately explain everything in detail. The farmer sat on the ground in the middle of the plantation and asked the cat to start talking. The farmer understood that the cat only chatted a little, and the hunters bought everything. Afterward, the cat handed Park Sejun 50 coins. Taking the pouch of coins, the farmer checked its contents. Then he gave 2 coins to the cat, calling him Employee Theo. The cat was happy but wanted to know what had happened to his ranking. Theo explained that he had been demoted for playing around for 4 days, but could regain his position if he worked hard. He also asked why the farmer kept speaking in that manner. Theo decided to stick to that style, as humans seemed to like it more. The farmer was pleased, saying soon everyone would know his name. The cat asked what he was talking about. The farmer explained that the name of the farm appeared in the product description, so people could see it. Soon, they would discover who cultivated the cherry tomatoes. At first, the cat froze. Terrified, he thought it was all over. There was a system for beginner merchants. It hid the strength and origin of their goods. The policy was designed to prevent wealthy traveling merchants from stealing suppliers from novice merchants. And since Theo was still a beginner merchant, the supplier's name shouldn't appear on the goods. The cat feared the farmer would find out and be very upset. The cat got ready and said he was going out to sell again, but the farmer told him to rest for a few days. However, the cat grabbed a new batch of cherry tomatoes and said he was in a hurry. He needed to work harder that day. He had to work tirelessly to remove the restriction on the farm's name, and the only way was to earn 1,000 coins. The farmer thought the cat was very determined to achieve his new promotion. The Phoenix Guild leader called everyone to return to the 38th floor. Some of them thought the girls might complain because they had returned in such a short time. What amazed him was that Jessica and the others were ready and looking stunning. They said they were prepared with tower coins and ready to buy cherry tomatoes, but saying they were ready for the expedition was enough. The captain approved and called everyone over. He also thought he would get more of those magical cherry tomatoes and become a great father. The cat was upset because he needed a total of 1,000 coins to reach a better ranking. The maximum number of cherry tomatoes he could carry was 1,500. If he kept selling like this, he would need more space. He tried returning to the same place as before to sell to the humans he had met last time. However, he noticed they were already waiting for him, and when they saw him, they were pleased. They were already calling him the merchant cat, with their coin pouches ready to buy tomatoes. He asked if they had been waiting for him. The answer was yes. They had been waiting there for 3 days. The cat thought that waiting 3 days just to buy cherry tomatoes was oddly specific. One of the humans confirmed with the cat that his cherry tomatoes were 0.05 coins each, but the cat had changed the price. He announced that the price had gone up slightly due to high demand. Everyone was shocked, thinking they might not be able to buy anymore. When the leader found out what was happening, one of the men explained that the tomato prices had increased. They wanted to know how much they cost now. The cat replied that they were now 0.07 coins each. Internally, he wondered if he had raised the price too much and feared losing customers. However, none of them minded. The first order alone was for 200 magical cherry tomatoes. They thought it was normal for a valuable item not to be cheap. The next orders were for 500, and there was one customer who could only afford 200 until he sold everything he had. The leader asked when the cat would return with more tomatoes. The cat wanted to know if he would wait for him. He said he would return in about 10 days. The captain agreed, saying he would be there in 10 days since that was the mission interval. The guild leader called everyone to hurry because they had to finish the giant spider mission in the tower. The cat could hardly contain his excitement, as he had secured some tough clients. At this rate, he would gather the 1,000 coins quickly. He thought he needed to become a mid-ranked merchant soon to reveal his supplier's name. One of the girls approached and asked for permission to speak with Mr. Cat. One girl told another she thought this was the cat they had heard about before. If not, he looked very similar. The cat asked her not to call him that, as his name was Theo. She found his name charming and introduced herself as Suha, saying he resembled another cat. However, he claimed to be the only beautiful cat in the world and was concerned about needing to return. From her backpack, she asked him to wait a moment and showed him something. She asked if he would like to try some churu. At first, he was suspicious, but since the human seemed kind, he decided to try it, especially since he only ever ate fried fish. He was blown away by the taste. It seemed like fish but had a nutty flavor and melted in his mouth. "Can I eat it all?" he asked the human. She replied that she had more, and Suha, clever as she was, had several others in different flavors. However, she would only give them to him if he took a photo with her. He agreed but demanded all the treats in return. With her phone in hand, she asked the cat to smile and say something nice for the photo. Both were satisfied. The cat got the treats he wanted, and the girl got a photo of the cutest cat in the world. The girls commented that it was the first time they saw someone bringing treats for the cat. Some girls said it was nice to see her smiling like that. Next time, she would bring treats too. She looked at the photo happily because the cat was so adorable, and seeing him filled her with joy. At the farm, the black rabbit was taking swimming lessons but found it dangerous because of the piranhas. Park Sejun instructed the rabbit to relax his body and extend the onion-made platform forward. However, they could only train in the lake because he had plugged the hole where the piranhas came out. Even so, some occasionally appeared, making it a bit safer. He praised the rabbit, showing enthusiasm for his progress, and asked him to do it alone now. The farmer, looking at the rabbit, still felt overwhelmed, remembering the time he almost drowned. After falling into the lake while celebrating catching some piranhas, the farmer was in shock because the piranhas nearly devoured him. Just thinking about it made his heart race, so he decided to take better care of the rabbit and train in swimming. Exhausted, the farmer decided to drink some more honey, but when he checked his bottle, it was already empty. Because the honey was so delicious, he had already consumed it all. Thinking about it, he realized he hadn't seen the little bee since moving there a few days ago. He wondered what might have happened. Looking up, he noticed a beehive and several small bees. Their numbers had grown since the last time he looked. Those were the little bee's offspring. It had been a long time, and he wanted to see the babies and congratulate her. However, he thought he shouldn't go empty-handed. He went to the tomato plantation and picked a branch with several fresh flowers. But the bees watched his movements, and when he shook the branch, they became agitated, buzzing angrily. He tried to signal to the little bees that he had a gift for the hive, but they became irritated, their eyes turning red as they prepared to attack. The farmer was terrified. However, his black warrior rabbit had already prepared its hammer to fight them. The farmer begged the rabbit not to do it, saying they weren't enemies of the bees, and asked him to avoid the fight. The small bees were monstrously out of control and ready to attack, but at the sound of a buzz, they immediately calmed down. It was their queen, commanding them to be still. He couldn't believe that this transformed bee was the same little bee he had known before. His little bee friend had now become a grown-up queen bee of the hive. Through her gentle eyes and sweet smile, he realized she had evolved into the queen bee herself. Still, he wondered if it was really the same little bee he had known. He remembered that venomous bees were a type of carnivorous tower monster that hunted their prey with poison. That was essentially all he knew about them. However, the administrator was facing issues. There wasn't a proper explanation for a situation like this in the tower management guide. But since it wasn't dangerous, he decided to keep an eye on those bees for now and ask his grandfather about it later. Besides, even though it wasn't a simple situation, there might be a solution. The administrator watched everything through the crystal ball. Meanwhile, the farmer spoke directly with the little bee and her offspring. He couldn't understand how she had grown so much. She had been so small before. He even questioned her to confirm it was really her. Her appearance was also surreal. She had changed a lot, but it had all happened after consuming the cave nectar. Every time she fed on it, her body emitted a strong smell, and her weight increased slightly. This caught the queen's attention, and she quickly realized why the queen's behavior toward her had changed. She had become capable of laying eggs. At that moment, the little bee decided to become independent. She built a hive inside Sejuan's cave, the safest place she could imagine. She endured great pain inside her new hive, going through several transformations until she finally reached her final form. Her appearance began to change, and that's how she became the venomous queen bee. Park Sejuan offered her the tomato branch, congratulating her on becoming a queen. Although the moment felt a little strange, he asked her to accept the gift. She reacted as she used to and rushed to hug her friend, and her offspring did the same. The bee's offspring also greeted the little rabbits. The farmer declared his affection for her and her babies. A few days later, they noticed an anomaly and called the farmer. He thought he could sleep through the blue moon because he was very tired. They showed him a blue carrot. It was a carrot imbued with the energy of the blue moon. He thought it wouldn't change much since it was small. It would be great if it could shrink. He realized that's why the little rabbits had woken him up. He pierced the carrot's leaves to pull it out, and it came out easily. It was a reasonable-sized carrot. He was pleased, as the carrot was about the size of a thermos cup. It was the agility carrot. It was a carrot cultivated in the tower. It was nutritious and delicious, but with the blue moon's energy, it became even better. When consumed, it permanently increased agility by 0.05 points. His class experience increased, his harvesting proficiency rose to level 2, and his experience reached 70 points. That was an E+ ranked plantation, which meant that when he harvested a crop as good as that, he wanted to earn 70 experience points and offered the carrot to the bunnies, thanking them for their hard work. They were amazed by the farmer's gesture, and one of them picked up a sickle to slice it. Another bunny tossed the carrot into the air so it could be easily sliced and divided among everyone. In this way, all the bunnies were able to eat a piece of the carrot infused with the energy of the blue moon. Sejuan thanked the bunny for skillfully using the sickle and cutting everything to the perfect size. It was an excellent performance. The bunny with the sickle expressed gratitude and went off to eat his piece of the carrot with the energy of the blue moon. That day, they were also able to harvest another blue fruit, and this time, the blue moon produced 5 special cherry tomatoes. He handed one of them to the administrator and said that since he was showing gratitude, maybe he could earn another skill. The administrator replied that he would think about it and maybe grant one later. The farmer didn't like that response. When he noticed the bees were agitated, he looked over and asked them to calm down. He explained that this was Theo and that all friends should like him too. The bees were uneasy because the cat hadn't been around when the little bees were born, so it was normal for them not to consider him a friend. He reinforced once again that the cat was a friend, picking him up and rubbing him against his cheek to show he was part of the family. The cat thanked him because the farmer helped him and even called him a brother. This made the farmer happy, and he squeezed the cat's cheeks. Even so, he told the cat he couldn't do that. He was just an employee and couldn't call him a brother. Then he called employee Theo to tally up the sales and the money they earned. Upon opening and counting, he realized they had made 75 coins. Theo had worked hard. The cat even mentioned that humans were waiting to buy tomatoes and that he had charged 0.2 coins more. He asked if the farmer was surprised at how well he had done and said he could now go back to being a merchant cat. The farmer handed the incentive to employee Theo, who asked for his title back. However, the farmer said he was far from earning it back, and for now, he would remain employee Theo. When the cat mentioned raising the price of the tomatoes, the farmer already knew because the administrator had informed him. Park Sejuan assured him there would be another blue moon harvest as thanks for the information the administrator provided. The farmer was puzzled when he saw the cat eating treats. He observed closely and asked where he had gotten them. Theo explained that it was churu, and he had received it from a human after taking a photo with her. The farmer wondered why a human would give him that. There were only 2 ways for items from the outside to enter the tower. The first was being sucked in, as had happened to him, along with the items he had on him. Originally, people who were sucked in appeared on the first floor and traded items to ascend the tower. The other way was when a hunter awakened and brought something, but they could only carry about 1 kilogram of items. These were usually instant foods to consume while climbing, tobacco, or other small things. However, a female hunter was bringing unnecessary items just to meet the cat. The farmer had a genius idea, a new business plan. He started looking at the cat strangely, making Theo flatten his ears and ask if he wanted to try some. The farmer decided to confiscate all of the cat's treats. The cat panicked, and Park asked him to stop, saying he would rip his clothes. The cat explained he had gotten them after taking a photo with a human. Park Sejun pointed out that this was the issue. The agreement he had made with the human violated the special conditions of Rule 3. Without permission from Party A, Party B could not have additional clients. This was a serious breach of contract. The cat apologized, saying he didn't fully understand all the clauses of the contract. The farmer told Merchant Theo not to be so alarmed and took the opportunity to discuss the clients with him. He said he would let the cat stay in the merchant position for a while if he behaved well and made deals in the future. Lifting the cat, he said Theo could become a merchant for several hours if he reached an agreement. He set the cat down, calling him Merchant Theo. The bunnies lit the fire and began grilling fish. He asked the cat to lie down comfortably and eat that churu. The bunnies, being clever, knew the farmer was only taking good care of the cat to gain favors in the future. The cat didn't know that being a merchant came with such privileges. It was the best feeling in the world. The farmer asked Merchant Theo if he liked churu. Theo replied that he also wanted grilled fish. Appearing kind, the farmer said he'd go get some immediately, calling him Merchant Theo. He then asked how Theo managed to get to the 38th floor without fighting other monsters. Theo explained it was because of his traveling merchant license, which caught the farmer's interest. He pointed to the brooch and said it was proof he was a traveling merchant, but he had to pay an annual fee for it. Theo explained that the higher the level, the more money he had to pay each year, but it also came with more benefits. He elaborated that, with the license, he could access various facilities protected by the Merchant Association. Not being attacked by monsters was one of the advantages of being a traveling merchant. Park Sejun wanted to know if it was possible to bring hunters to that floor. However, Theo said it was impossible. While monsters didn't attack merchants, they still attacked hunters. Additionally, the merchant's path was accessible only to traveling merchants. Theo explained that without the merchant's pass, it was impossible to get from there to the 38th floor in just 5 days. That's when the farmer asked which floor they were on. Theo replied it was the 99th floor. The farmer was shocked, as he hadn't known that. It was too much to take in all at once. His reaction worried his merchant friend, who asked what was happening. The farmer thought that since the journey only took 10 days, the place must have been somewhere on the 38th floor. However, he reasoned that this information didn't change anything for him. He knew where he was but still didn't know how to leave. Theo, concerned because the farmer wasn't saying anything, held his face with his little paws. He warned that the week's payment would turn to ashes if he kept acting like that. Despite this, the farmer reflected that it had only been a few weeks since hunters started climbing the 40th floor. He thought he should just give up and leave the tower. Then Theo ordered him not to let it defeat him. The farmer looked at Theo and told him his time as a merchant was over. He was no longer Merchant Theo. The cat felt sad because he was now just Employee Theo. Park Sejun, noticing the pendant hanging from Theo's cloak, began imagining things. He envisioned how great it would be if, deep in the forest, there were hungry and wounded hunters, unable to return safely due to monsters, and out of nowhere, salvation appeared. The legendary tower farmer, along with his orange cat mascot, offering organic products at a fair price. On top of everything, they were magical items. Everyone would be thrilled to see that the legendary farmer truly existed and appeared before them in their hour of need. He imagined how much money he and his orange cat mascot could make selling those fruits and vegetables. Then he asked Theo if it was possible for him to become a traveling merchant too. Theo questioned if he wasn't someone from outside the tower because only creatures born inside the tower could become merchants. He asked if the farmer wasn't aware of that. This left Park Sejun very upset. His dreams of glory were crushed. Theo clarified that although it seemed cool and beneficial for them, the farmer should give up on that idea. The protagonist couldn't handle the thought, and started pulling his own hair in despair. In a moment of frustration, he screamed in agony at the tower, thinking it was ruining his dreams. The scream was so startling that the little rabbits became frightened. It even disturbed the queen bee and her tiny offspring. The scream was so beastly that it unsettled the tower administrator, who was eating his tomato skewer. Everyone was alarmed by the farmer's loud scream. The black rabbit, and the merchant cat hugged each other for comfort. The cat, terrified, climbed onto the black rabbit's head and told him that the farmer was scaring everyone there. Upset, the farmer thought everything was turning out so differently from what he had imagined. He should have prepared himself for disappointment when he entered the tower. He lifted his head and decided he couldn't let it defeat him, knowing there was nothing he could do. He resolved to live each moment to the fullest, and that was enough for him. While eating 2 cherry tomatoes in a dish, someone commented that the item had mysterious rumors, which had recently become popular among players and had come from her brother, a member of the Phoenix Guild. She mentioned to the vice director that she couldn't see the status window, but he could. When he checked, he realized it was a magical cherry tomato and placed it back on the plate. What seemed like trash to him was a great opportunity for her. However, he still couldn't see it and became upset with her, but she was prepared and showed him a panel indicating that, after consumption, a person with high fat levels could easily control their weight. Seeing this, the director was pleased. She explained that, as expected, she wasn't able to extract the compound from the item. He wanted to know why she was showing him that data since it was a business she couldn't monopolize on her own. She talked about his intention behind the agricultural tower project. She said it was only a matter of time before it failed. She also mentioned that he should regain his father's trust, who was the current president of Gagel. She had heard that the board was preparing to elect the next president because the current one was unwell. Pointing to the tomato, she asked if he didn't think it looked appetizing. So, he decided to try it. At first, he found the taste delicious. So much so that he laughed joyfully. He ate 2 and then asked if there were more. She, dissatisfied, said he had even eaten hers. After recovering from the shock of reality, he decided to change his strategy since he was willing to settle there for good. They would need to address the inconveniences they had experienced so far. They also needed to increase the necessary items for daily activities. They should explore the surroundings for their own safety and ask the cat if there were any monsters near the cave. Theo explained that there weren't any nearby, but there were some farther away. The farmer became interested in the type of monster it was. The cat said they were crimson giant bears. Park Sejun remembered it was the same monster as last time, a crimson giant bear. The cat mentioned that it was a terrible monster, and that every time he passed by it, it would always stare at him. Thus, he concluded it was dangerous to leave the cave. He also thought about how thousands of cherry tomatoes would bloom soon. If there were many flowers, the number of venomous bees would also grow. In that case, he could use the venomous bees to patrol near the cave, ensuring no monsters approached. He could also ask the venomous bees to tie the rope he had made from onion leaves to the nearby trees. That way, he could leave the cave himself, and he gave a mission to the cat. He made it clear that it was a very important mission only a merchant could complete. He asked Merchant Theo if he was willing to carry it out. The cat confirmed that he was. A few days later, on the 38th floor, the cat spotted the agreed location for the tomato delivery from afar. He noticed that, compared to last time, there were more people there, as if securing the spot. But it didn't matter. This time, the more clients the better. He leaped and landed near them. He saw that everyone had already arrived and observed how impatiently they walked toward him. A young, burly man appeared, asking if he had miraculous cherry tomatoes and stating that he could buy them all. The others asked how he could cut in line and go first since they had all arrived and were prepared to buy. However, the warrior said that Team Phoenix couldn't monopolize the floor. He asked one of them to wait a minute and for everyone to listen carefully. He announced that he was changing the sales method starting that day. This piqued their curiosity, making them wonder what he meant by that. Theo declared that he would sell 500 cherry tomatoes to whoever paid the highest price. The system would be like an auction, 500 cherry tomatoes starting at a bid of 35 coins. Since the supply was limited, the number of people needing them would undoubtedly increase. An auction would be the best method. He toasted with a drink alongside his favorite rabbit. There were also other missions he expected Theo to complete successfully using his negotiation skills. After the break, he asked everyone to get back to work and requested the black rabbit to prepare dinner. The farmer thought that the popularity of cherry tomatoes outside the tower was greater than he had imagined. He bet there was some psychological competition involved in securing the items. The administrator asked the farmer to offer a glass of the drink he had prepared. The farmer commented that squeezing so many cherry tomatoes would take a long time since he had work to do. Messages kept arriving, and the tower administrator demanded that he complete the mission. However, the farmer asked if he wanted to reveal the mission's reward. The administrator replied that it was necessary to complete the mission to access the reward. Park Sejun, interested in gaining a new skill, asked him to wait a moment as he was about to do it. He thought that since he felt like it, he would make juice using the first 50 cherry tomatoes he had harvested. He mixed them with a bit of honey and shared the drink with the rabbits. The taste was so delicious that the rabbits whimpered for a while, wanting more. So, he gathered a larger quantity, thinking it would be enough, and tried making it again. Using his self-invented mortal pulp technique, He asked the bee for help, and she created a large honey bubble, placing it in the container. The cherry tomato juice was ready. He then offered it to the tower administrator, who was curious about the flavor and flapped his wings in anticipation. The farmer began wondering about the wings and imagining what kind of animal the administrator might be. As soon as the administrator received the juice in a cup with a straw, he started drinking it. The dragon tasted a sweet and tangy flavor. He was so happy that he literally flapped his wings and sent a message praising the farmer. Park Sejun, upon receiving the reward, opened it immediately to see what it was. First, he had to register the beehive as his own to use the skill. Now he would also be a beekeeper, and the maximum number of beehives he could register was full. The farmer found the new skill quite interesting. In the status window, it showed that both he and the bees would experience noticeable improvements in beekeeping abilities. He was now relieved, as he had feared that the venomous bees might follow him when he left the cave. He expressed his gratitude to the tower administrator for listening to his concerns, and the administrator, seeing the participant's cheerful face through the crystal ball, was slightly pleased with his thanks. The administrator then joked that, since he was being thanked, the farmer could easily provide another glass of cherry tomato and honey juice. However, the farmer had a question. He was curious and wondered aloud if the administrator might be a flying pig. Those words deeply offended the black dragon, who didn't appreciate being compared to a winged pig. Park Sejun was startled when the administrator became angry, not understanding the reason for the sudden reaction. Meanwhile, Theo was managing the auction. The Phoenix Guild leader thought he had to buy the tomatoes. He offered 41 tower coins for 500 units, thinking that securing the tomatoes was the top priority for now. However, a burly man bid 45 tower coins for the 500 units. The bidding continued until it reached 52 tower coins for the 500 units. Everyone became desperate, and the bidding escalated to 60 coins. However, not everyone had that much money. As a result, the auction system quickly adapted. In the meantime, the vice president appeared and offered 100 tower coins. He declared he would buy all 500 units for 100 tower coins. Seeing no other offers, Theo sold them. Everyone grumbled among themselves, as they had wanted to buy some tomatoes too. The Phoenix Guild leader noticed that it was Michel, the vice president of Gagel. But he also noticed another member, Chris, who hadn't been part of that expedition. The leader demanded an explanation for what Chris was doing there. The young man apologized to the team leader. He explained that he was simply accompanying Mr. Michel to the location of the traveling merchant. The leader didn't like having to compete with such a large pharmaceutical company. He hadn't expected the rumors to spread so quickly. Theo had 2 more batches of tomatoes to auction and needed to sell them quickly this time. He announced that the next batch was ready for bidding to begin. Theo declared the bidding for the next lot would start at 38 coins. The leader was confident, thinking he could win this time, and quickly offered 60 coins. Once again, Vice President Michel offered 100 coins. The leader asked others for money to gather the amount, but Theo announced that the round was already closing. The next auction would start at 35 coins. While they were arguing, they didn't realize that round had already ended. The vice president told the traveling merchant to stop, as he would take all 1,500 units for 300 tower coins. The Phoenix leader was devastated, realizing that the highest status individual had taken the entire opportunity. One of his assistants reported that everything was being loaded and asked what they should do next. Looking at the magical tomato, the leader said they would head to the first floor of the tower as quickly as possible. A girl who had taken a picture with the cat before recognized him and called out to him. He realized it was Suha, the human who had given him churu. She was happy to see that he still remembered her. However, he recalled her name incorrectly, but she didn't mind because he had made an effort to keep it in his head. And offering more churu, she asked if they could take another photo. Although the cat was excited, he said he no longer needed churu. This attitude startled the hunter. Satisfied, he told her it could be exchanged for something called coffee, something similar to churu. She turned, rummaged through her backpack, and showed him the coffee mix he was referring to. He asked if she also had salt and pepper, and the hunters around found the cat's taste peculiar. Since those were common condiments, and she had them, she gave them to him, as agreed with the farmer. When people asked to take photos, they were to request items like coffee, pepper, or salt. The cat was happy because, with that performance, he could spend more time in Park Sejun's lap. Once again, the cat posed for a photo, excited by the fan who adored him. They took the opportunity to snap several photos with unusual poses. He also thanked her for giving him the condiments. She kept squeezing the cat's paw, finding it incredibly soft. He asked what she was doing. She apologized and said she couldn't help it because it felt so nice. She had given him churu in exchange for holding his paw and was grateful that he allowed her to touch them. She explained that humans felt good because they didn't have soft, beautiful paws like his. The cat was surprised by the young woman's explanation. He thought that the pads on his paws must be lucky charms. Another young woman approached, wanting to take photos with him. She offered pepper in exchange. He took the photo with her, and even offered his paws for her to touch a bit. Afterward, he wanted rewards for letting them hold his paws. She gave him several condiments as thanks for allowing her to touch his paws. He thought that just by doing this, he might qualify to be a merchant for 24 hours. Then, he had another mission to complete, and quietly approached a girl to look at her photo. He was pleased, looking at his picture, and called her the Chura girl, asking what she was doing. She thought he had already left, and he asked if she came from a place called the Republic of Korea. He said he figured it out because he caught a familiar scent from her. He asked if she could help. She was surprised because she didn't know what he would ask. Meanwhile, the little bees on the farm were enjoying the nectar from the tomato flowers. Others were producing honey and depositing it in the beekeeper farmer's bottle. He thought everything was going well, as the bee population continued to grow. His beekeeping skill had also leveled up, and the queen bee was laying eggs, making her difficult to spot these days. He noticed the option change from increase slightly to increase moderately. He thought that when they expanded from 1 hive to 2, he would need another container for honey collection. It would be good to have an extra bottle, but he could think about it later. Meanwhile, he was harvesting carrots and called the rabbits to stay close to him. He earned 10 XP for harvesting the carrot with proficiency. He noticed that after a few days of harvesting the blue carrot, he was able to harvest normal carrots as well. He gave a whole carrot to each rabbit, increasing the variety of food available in the cave. Seeing all the rabbits bowing with the carrots above their heads, he asked if that was really necessary. After a while, everyone started eating grilled fish and carrots. He looked at the agile carrot and checked its status window. He noticed that eating it could reduce 10 g of body fat. Once the number of harvests increased and they could sell them, they might become famous. He decided to eat quickly so he could harvest more carrots and store them. All the rabbits were helping, and in no time, they had harvested and stored many carrots. He noticed the black rabbit getting tired quickly, but later realized it was just a tactic to sneak carrots to eat. Then he looked at the storage and saw it was almost full. They could stop organizing things for now. He noticed the messages on the status window kept arriving. He harvested a ripe carrot, and his experience increased. Having reached level 10, he gained a bonus status, and a new mission appeared. He asked the tower administrator what it was. However, it wasn't his doing. It was a work mission that appeared at level 10 and needed to be completed to gain new attributes. He had heard about work missions before. Normal hunters received missions related to combat. He was a farmer, so he wondered what kind of mission he would receive. He thought it might be something simple, but when he looked, he realized it involved expanding his plantation by 50 square meters. He found it very easy and quickly completed the mission. As a reward, he advanced to level 11. By doing so, he gained a bonus status point and, as a reward for completing the mission, received 10 tower coins. He also received a job-related attribute. After finishing, he felt satisfied, as the work had been hard. He was eager to see what job-related attribute he had earned as a reward. However, having completed the mission quickly, he was exhausted. After eating and planting carrots, all he wanted to do was rest. He organized everyone to go to sleep since the next day they would all work again. However, the little rabbits prepared to enter their parents' burrow only to realize they couldn't get in, as their father had locked the door with them outside. No matter how much they knocked, he wouldn't open it. Park Sejun found this behavior strange and asked what was going on. He realized the little rabbits had been kicked out, and understood they would once again become adult white and black rabbits. It was time for them to become independent. Since it was too late to dig tunnels that day, they decided to sleep together with him. They all lay down on the bed made of green onion leaves. He thought it was nice sometimes to sleep surrounded by little rabbits, as they were soft and warm. The Phoenix team leader thought his daughter would be upset about not having the tomatoes. That's when one of the hunters appeared with the merchant cat. Curious why the traveling merchant was still there, she explained that he had something to say. Theo asked if she was the leader of the people living in Korea. He asked if she wanted to make a contract with him and offered his paw to seal the deal. The Phoenix Guild leader didn't expect such a reaction from the cat, who then showed him the contract paper. It required the leader to send 50 million won to Park Sejuin's family living in the district. The cat added that he should also tell them Mr. Sejuin was doing very well. In exchange, they would provide 50 tower coins and 200 magical cherry tomatoes. The leader, who had earlier tried to win the auction for the tomatoes, now stood before them. In tears, he thought this might make him the best father to his daughter. However, he had one doubt. He asked the cat who this Mr. Park Sejuin was, suspecting he might not be able to leave the tower. Theo had been instructed to keep the farmer's location secret. So, the story he told was that this man had saved his life on the 40th floor. That was enough for the leader to imagine that Park Sejuin was a high-level hunter. He also wanted to know if Sejuin was the owner of the magical tomatoes. Theo couldn't reveal anything about the tomato's origin. For now, he kept that a secret. The Phoenix leader thought that even with his guild's best members, the 40th floor would still be difficult. Therefore, he wanted to maintain a relationship with this solo hunter, hoping he might join the guild in the future. They could also monopolize the distribution of those rare cherry tomatoes. With this in mind, the Phoenix leader decided to make the contract with the cat, who said all they had to do was sign the paper. After signing the paper, the cat double-checked everything to ensure it was correct. Everyone knew the agreement would also be honored outside the tower. They agreed to meet in 10 days, as the leader would take responsibility for delivering the news to Park Sejun's father. Back in the cave, the rabbits were busy building their homes after being kicked out by their parents. Once they finished, they called the farmer to see how their construction had turned out. Park was amazed at their flawless execution. He found it adequate and quite spacious. It was essentially a roof made of onion leaves and walls of clay. The rabbit with the shovel must have worked very hard, as did the one with the scythe. He noticed they had even built a room for resting between work hours. The farmer wished he had something like that too. Nonetheless, he congratulated all of them. He realized it had been a few days since the rabbits had moved out of the rabbit couple's home. He decided to throw a housewarming party for the little rabbit's new home. The baby rabbits began building their homes, while the rabbit couple remained snuggled together. They toasted with tomato and honey juice, celebrating the rabbit's efforts and hard work. They also served tomato and honey juice to the black rabbit, who ensured they always had plenty of fish. He praised their idea of turning carrots into cups by hollowing them out. Despite being small, the cups were nutritious. He noticed that the pair of rabbits had been very close lately, and he found it suspicious. Ever since they had their offspring, they stayed glued to each other. He thought the rabbits might soon have baby siblings. Hearing a noise, he went to see what it was. It was a notification from the shop, as the reopening date had arrived. He was pleased since he had forgotten about the date after so much work. He eagerly wanted to see what options were available for purchase. The 3 options were potatoes, strawberries, and lettuce. He got excited when he saw the lettuce. It made him crave his favorite dish, which had lettuce as one of its ingredients. But since he didn't have the right ingredients, the remaining options were strawberries and potatoes. He had enough money for both but could only choose one, making it difficult to decide. However, he thought carbohydrates were the best and decided to go with the potatoes. He noted that the shop would reopen again in 30 days and earned 50 loyalty points. A sack of potato seeds magically appeared above his head. He was startled by the possibility of the heavy sack falling on him. It didn't land directly on his head but came very close. The noise startled the rabbit couple, and the husband got irritated. The farmer apologized for the incident. He opened the sack of potato seeds, feeling very excited. Everything looked so delicious. He wanted to plant them quickly to harvest them even faster. He planned to cook, boil, and even make potato pancakes. Feeling excited to cook, he asked the bunnies if they felt the same way. However, he was very tired and decided to take a break. Tomorrow he would focus on planting the potatoes. He remembered the cat and wanted to know if Theo was doing well. Theo had already finished his tasks. Meanwhile, in the central merchant district, bustling with vendors and many options, and animals strolling back and forth, the cat was searching for specific items. Blankets, pillows, shells, bowls, spoons, and even something that could serve as a frying pan and a cooking pot. He asked the stall owner how much everything cost. After looking at the selected items, the owner calculated the price. The clever cat immediately asked for a discount. The owner thought he was quite direct. He commented that he had never seen the cat there before but said he would be generous and offer a discount. However, the discount given was too little for the cat, so he asked for more. The stall owner thought the cat was asking for too much and said he couldn't give any more discounts. Knowing exactly what he wanted and how much he would pay, the cat said he would buy elsewhere. But the stall owner stopped him, offering a bit more of a discount to keep him from leaving. Initially, the items would have cost 1.6 tower coins, but with the discount, the price dropped to 1.2 tower coins. The cat placed the coins on the barrel and left, satisfied with his purchase. The owner thought the cat was a novice but acted like a true master. However, upon inspecting the coins, he noticed the cat's paw was sweaty. Theo, terrified, stopped in an alley a bit further away, out of breath. Although victorious, the experience felt strange to him. He had managed to act like a normal person. He recalled the lessons he had with Park Sejun about avoiding being an easy target as a buyer. He was taught to always ask for a discount first, and if unsuccessful, to leave. If called back, he should ask for 3 more consecutive discounts. He only needed to remember that to avoid being fooled again. The cat realized it was true. Following his teacher's steps, he managed to play the role of a good student perfectly. Now he was a street merchant who knew how to negotiate discounts and was proud of it. But as he passed by, he heard a familiar voice saying something he had heard before. It was Scarum trying to scam someone else the same way he had been deceived before. Scarum was telling someone that it was a secret, and that all those goods would make them a high-level merchant. Hearing those words reminded Theo of when he had been tricked, and it made him lose control. Determined not to let the goblins scam another beginner merchant, he decided to warn the victims so they wouldn't be deceived as he had been in the past. From where he stood, he shouted Scarum's name, declaring he had finally found him. He approached, visibly angry, but the goblin tried to trick him again. However, thanks to the lessons he had learned from Park Sejun, Theo was smarter and determined not to be fooled again. He tried to change the subject, pretending innocence, but the clever cat knew the items were trash. In that place, they were useless. The cups should have been sold as something preserved by magic, but it was something unbelievable, like everything that came out of the mouth of that deceitful merchant. There was no magic in any of it. All the items were equally bad and completely ineffective. Scarum was stunned by the cat's intelligence. Suddenly, he tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, but that excuse didn't work. Theo called the guards he saw nearby to apprehend the scammer. This action infuriated the goblin, who decided to flee, declaring he would let the cat off the hook this time. He quickly left the place. It's possible the captive also escaped being scammed that day. Theo referred to the merchant as vile scum. He couldn't believe Scarum was doing those things. The novice merchant thanked Theo for his warning. Theo took the opportunity to introduce himself. He told her his name was Theo and thanked her for the help he received there. The cat said it was fine and advised her to be careful. The fox, seeing the cat leaving, didn't seem very pleased and soon revealed her true self. Suddenly, others who had been hidden appeared. It was a police ambush. However, the cat scratched at everything in sight as he recklessly entered the scene. The officer was furious with her assistants for allowing the cat to appear so imprudently. She believed there was no excuse for what they had done, and that agent should pay for it. She was an agent from the Secret Inspection Unit of the Traveling Merchants Association. Zereth stated that this was no excuse, as the operation to capture Scarum had been in preparation for months. For that reason, she demanded hundreds of apology letters so he could reflect on his mistake. Before leaving, she said he had to deliver 100 apology letters. Zereth thought about how, recently, there had been many reports of a fraudulent merchant. Scarum knew where and how to obtain items that could only be found outside the tower. That's why they were keeping an eye on him, trying to figure out how he got those items and whether he used illegal routes. Even though it was difficult, she had managed to make contact with him by disguising herself as a novice traveling merchant. However, their plans were interrupted by the cat who appeared out of nowhere. Now, they would have to revise their plan. She remembered the cat's name was Theo. It seemed he wasn't on good terms with Scarum, so she decided to investigate him as well. Meanwhile, Theo was making his way back to the cave, feeling good about having helped someone escape the clutches of a villain. Back at the cave, the farmer was giving instructions on how to cut potatoes, to quadruple the seeds for a larger plantation. Following his instructions, the rabbit with the scythe did everything correctly, dividing the potatoes into 4 pieces. The farmer advised that the soil should be moistened before placing the cut pieces in the ground. He asked the rabbits if they were impressed with his method of quadrupling the potato harvest. He shared that he had seen the technique on YouTube in the past while watching something without paying much attention. He had already earned a bit of XP. It wasn't much, but he thought it could provide some extra income. Now that they had finished planting the potatoes, it was time to unearth some sweet potatoes. He asked if anyone remembered the proper way to do it. He reminded them that the sprouts should be replanted to grow new sweet potatoes. They couldn't simply discard the sweet potato sprouts, as that would waste future crops. However, the black rabbit reminded the others that the last time, he planted them all by himself. This calmed the rabbits, who had thought the hard work would fall entirely on the farmer. Thus, they all looked at him with cynical expressions, as if saying he would be the one to suffer. Seeing this, the farmer explained that this time the work would be divided, and he wouldn't do everything alone. He decided he could no longer monopolize the tasks, even if it meant earning fewer points. The little rabbits didn't like the decision much but began working anyway. While some cut the sprouts, others carried them to be replanted. The warrior rabbit thought planting was too complicated and tired easily. That day, the farmer was also exhausted. He had cultivated 500 square meters of sweet potato land. He noticed that even without working alone, he had earned 150 XP for adding the extra land. The rabbits were satisfied, and they all started performing a strange dance and song. The song was soft, joyful, and loud. They danced as if they were circling the farmer. A notification arrived saying the rabbits were performing an amateur dance to bless the planting for abundance. And the tower administrator also shouted, "Sweet potato," to help motivate the dance. However, he thought it was the right time to dig up some sweet potatoes. But when he started, one of them was glowing incessantly. It was an intense glow, which left him astonished. The bee was also startled by the glow coming from that sweet potato. It was said that this was not an ordinary sweet potato, it was a sun sweet potato pumpkin hybrid. It became like that after receiving direct sunlight at the highest point of the tower, and contained solar energy. It burned 100 grams of fat and provided resistance to cold for 24 hours. He received an achievement for having produced a new species in the tower, even though he didn't know that was possible. He was shocked at the possibility of having created a new species in the tower. Outside the tower, a car was heading to the location where it was supposed to deliver money to the Sejuan family, and the leader of the Phoenix group was standing in front of Mr. Sejuan's house, facing a sweet potato of a different variety, along with the rabbits. Messages confirmed that he had achieved something by producing a new variety in the tower. The tower granted the farmer exclusive rights to cultivate new varieties, and no one else could grow the sun sweet potato pumpkin hybrid. Park Sejuan was overwhelmed with emotion. It was as if to say he was the only one entitled to the sweet potato. Knowing this news, he hurried to plant the sweet potato in the soil to ensure the best cultivation. He was very curious about the taste of this new variety, but he couldn't waste it by simply eating it. Very satisfied, he raised his hand in the air, along with the rabbits, and they decided they should unearth more sweet potatoes. After pulling up another sweet potato vine and seeing its abundant roots, the rabbits celebrated. Thus, the farmer continued harvesting the sweet potatoes, along with his helpers. They lit a fire to cook the sweet potatoes and grill the fish, ensuring a nutritious meal. After checking if the sweet potatoes were properly cooked, he blew on them before handing them to the rabbits. He split the sweet potatoes in half to cool the interior so everyone could eat safely. The joy on the rabbits' faces was visible as they ate the roasted sweet potatoes. One rabbit ate quickly, and the female rabbit was worried he might choke. He received a message from the tower administrator, who was waiting his turn to eat sweet potatoes. The farmer thanked him for waiting for the rabbits to eat first, and offered him 10 sweet potatoes. The tower administrator was grateful and said he would thoroughly enjoy the sweet potatoes. Looking at the remaining sweet potatoes, he had an idea and asked the scythe rabbit, who had already finished eating, to help him. Meanwhile, the tower administrator was enjoying his sweet potatoes. Eating them the way the farmer prepared them made him very satisfied. Little by little, he finished all of them and was sad to see they were gone. He thought he should ask the farmer for more sweet potatoes. However, looking into the crystal ball, he found it strange. The scythe rabbit was slicing sweet potatoes, and Park Sejuan was laying them on top of green onion leaves. He thought that after drying them this way, he would need to turn them over twice a day to achieve perfection. The farmer asked the scythe rabbit to cut up another sweet potato. The happy little rabbit threw another peeled sweet potato into the air and sliced it perfectly. The scythe rabbit was doing the job uniformly, and his work was praised. However, the tower administrator thought the farmer was wasting delicious sweet potatoes. The farmer explained that he wasn't wasting them but preparing them differently, and that they would turn out delicious. He asked if the administrator had ever heard of dehydrated sweet potatoes because that was the method he was using. Elsewhere, the doorbell of Park Sejuan's family home rang. The leader of the Phoenix team asked if this was Park Sejuan's house. The family, very warm and welcoming, opened the door and immediately asked about the whereabouts of their son. They also made sure to ask who the man standing outside their door was. After introductions, he was invited inside, and the family matriarch offered him some fruit. They asked what had brought the man to look for their son, and he explained that, at the moment, he was missing. Kim Dong-shik said he was the leader of the 5th team of the Phoenix Guild and handed them a business card. This made Park Sejuan's brother go wild because that guild was very famous. And upon looking at the business card, he saw that the identity was real. He truly was the leader of a famous guild. The young man, upon realizing that he was a famous high-level hunter, informed his parents. The patriarch of the family, upon seeing that he was an important man, asked his wife to remove the cheap melons and bring out the most expensive ones. The woman wanted to know if he had any news about their son, and whether he was also in the tower with him. Kim Dong-shik explained that he was there to deliver something on their son's behalf. He placed an envelope on the table, which caused surprise and curiosity among the family members. Upon opening the envelope, both the father, mother, and brother began to cry. They thought their son was good but wished he was with them. Kim Dong-shik noticed that the family believed the document was a will and quickly clarified the misunderstanding. Thus, the protagonist's father opened the envelope and was shocked by the number of zeros on the check. Kim explained that their son was deeply sorry for leaving urgently for the tower and wanted to let them know he was doing well. He had asked Kim to deliver that amount to the family. The patriarch was pleased, thinking his son was clever like him. However, the mother wanted to be sure that he was truly alright, and, if that were the case, why he hadn't come home. Kim Dong-shik was speaking with the protagonist's brother, who asked the team leader to call him Seedol. Kim wanted to know how long it had been since Park Sejuan had disappeared. The brother had no idea he was in the tower. The brother confirmed that they had lost contact with him about 5 months ago. She asked if they possibly used pseudonyms in the tower, as searching for his real name yielded no results. Kim explained that some people did this occasionally, and said he would investigate through the association. The leader reflected that, according to the family, he had entered the tower 5 months ago and wasn't registered with the association. Moreover, he had climbed to the 40th floor as a solo player. In the 10 years since the tower's appearance, no one had achieved such a feat. It marked the rise of a genius player, unprecedented in history. Seedal asked the leader if they had any talent development programs in the guild. However, the father interrupted, stating that the brother was already working hard in the tower. The leader explained that becoming a hunter was an extremely dangerous job, where one could even lose their life. And with that, he bid farewell to the family. However, he thought he should at least have a meal with them. The leader said he didn't have time, as he had to return to the tower, and also meet his own family first. Upon leaving, he went to the parking lot to get his car. Once inside, a mission completion message appeared. He was pleased to see that the mission was complete. However, his phone rang. It was his daughter. He completely changed his tone of voice, asking his daughter if she missed her father. He asked if she could guess what he was bringing for her, and revealed it was her favorite thing. Meanwhile, Theo felt the journey was too long and, as he walked, he snacked on a salmon skewer. Park Sejun used a technique to soak carrot tops in water until they sprouted roots. After moistening the soil, he planted the carrot tops, thus increasing his seeding proficiency to level 2. He found it fascinating to submerge the carrot tops, leftovers from the rabbit's daily meals, in water for several days. Once the leaves grew to a certain size, he covered them with soil until the root portions seeded the ground. The roots that had been eaten would not grow back, but when flowers blossomed at the top, seeds could be collected. This was what the farmer loved about agriculture. Hard work provided a rewarding sense of accomplishment. With this, the tower administrator asked if the dehydrated sweet potatoes were ready. Park Sejun said he was going to check on them at that moment. With his fighter rabbit on his shoulder, he inspected whether the sweet potatoes had dried well. Holding one, he told the rabbits they were going to try it. He was delighted to see they were ready. They had formed a crust on the outside while retaining moisture and sweetness on the inside. It was pure happiness. It was a baked sweet potato that had been sun-dried for 24 hours to maintain its sweetness and moisture. He was so excited that he decided to dry more to eat whenever he felt bored. The tower administrator asked if he had forgotten something. The farmer realized he had forgotten about him and apologized. Then he offered a bowl to the tower administrator, who asked what he was doing rummaging through his backpack. He thought it wasn't appropriate to send food in a bowl made of green onion leaves every time. However, the tower administrator said he didn't need such formalities and just wanted it sent quickly. Still, the farmer insisted on placing the sweet potatoes in a beautiful package and tying it with a green onion leaf ribbon. The result left the farmer extremely pleased, as it looked like a gift package of dehydrated sweet potatoes, ready for delivery. He commented that he used to do some part-time packaging work to earn extra money. He sent it to the administrator, who fell silent for a moment. The farmer asked if he wasn't going to take it. The administrator simply thanked him. The farmer thought he would enjoy it, but the reaction was very lackluster. However, the truth was that the administrator, being a superior black dragon, couldn't show how deeply moved he truly was. Holding the package made with such care, he trembled, not knowing how he could eat something so adorable. The reaction was overwhelming, so much so that the dragon wondered if he should even eat it. While eating the dehydrated sweet potatoes, he thought about how he had dried 40 of them in a single day. But it seemed it wasn't just him, the bunnies, and the bees. As he pondered this, the bee arrived, and he asked what the matter was. She handed him compressed corn pollen, which increased his beekeeping proficiency to level 2. The farmer regretted not having paid more attention to the little bee, who had already wanted to help him so much that she got lost in the plantation. He wondered if corn honey existed. Perhaps that was why the workers were collecting pollen instead of honey, compressed pollen. He didn't know if he should try it, but he knew people used it as a health supplement. Without fear, he placed the compressed corn pollen in his mouth, and the reaction was surprising. It was slightly bitter but had a sweet touch, like eating a gummy candy. It was extremely good. He thanked the little bee for giving him the opportunity to try it. Upon doing so, all the bees noticed that he enjoyed the feeling of the compressed pollen, and excited, each one handed him their portion. Bounding back into the cave, full of energy, was the merchant cat. When he encountered the little bee, the two stared at each other, and he shouted that he was afraid of the queen bee. The farmer told him that everyone already knew he was part of the family, and should treat him well. The cat seemed to be allergic to pollen, and started sneezing all over the farmer's shirt, who scolded him. After asking the vendor Theo if he had completed the requested tasks, he confirmed with a smile that he had. He said he had managed to deliver news of the farmer's well-being to his family, and showed that he had even made a contract with the guild leader. When the farmer looked at it, he noticed the contract. This meant his family had already received money and news from him. The cat said everything should have gone smoothly since the tower was strict with its contracts. Even so, he would drop by one of these days to check. The farmer thought that, at first, he wouldn't be able to contact his father, mother, and brother. But now that everything had passed, he was satisfied. He had become a farmer with rabbits, something he never imagined, not even in his dreams. His brother always doubted his dreams. Though it was annoying, that was his specialty. His mother always served a pot full of kimchi stew. The memory of those days left him content, but he missed his family deeply. Now, however, he had another family to care for and give his attention to. The black rabbit, the other rabbits, the bees, and even the merchant cat Theo were his new family. He told everyone that they were his family now and that he was very satisfied. The cat asked him to take a look at the tower coins and items he had obtained. He said he had used 50 tower coins for the contract fee and 14.2 coins for the messenger. The farmer was shocked to see that, even with the expenses, there were still 208.8 tower coins left. He was very pleased to know that the cat had also managed to bring cooking utensils. He thought it had been a long time since he'd seen items from civilization, and the rabbits took the opportunity to play with the pots. As expected, the item was made in the tower and had its own item signal. When he saw the dagger, he was even more satisfied, so much so that his eyes sparkled. However, the manufacturer was also not revealed, which left him intrigued. He asked the vendor Theo about it. The dagger came from the lottery corner. He already met the usage requirements, and wondered if he should use it. However, the tower administrator warned that if he used the unassessed item recklessly, he might face significant problems. A new mission appeared: send the unassessed short dagger to the administrator for evaluation. The tower administrator claimed it wasn't because he wanted more dehydrated sweet potatoes. Still, he was wiping away his drool. The farmer questioned why he wanted more, given that he had eaten plenty in the morning. But since it seemed risky to use an item of unverified origin, he decided to hand it over to the administrator for evaluation. He delivered the dagger along with some dehydrated sweet potatoes, thus completing the mission. The Cane's training short dagger was a dagger used by hunters on the Red Mountain. He was startled, as the weapon's name classified it as a named piece of equipment. If he went outside, named equipment would start at a base price of 100 million. He looked at Theo, the vendor, who had managed to obtain that rare and precious item from a lottery corner. When he looked at the cat, he thought it was just a naive creature. However, it had its own talent, not to mention those soft little paw pads. Meanwhile, outside the cave, in the forest, the baby red bear seemed to be attracted to something. The cat, eating its churro pouch, found it delicious. Park Sejun was practicing movements with his short dagger, and cutting green onions quickly and precisely. Theo asked the farmer if he liked the small sword. He replied that yes, he liked it a lot. The cat was annoyed because the farmer had promised him he would become a vendor an hour ago. Pushing the farmer's hand with its soft paw, the cat said it would let it slide this time but warned him to be careful. The farmer thought the cat was just a pushover, but pressing its paw pads, he realized the cat was very clever, and also very beautiful. The cat asked what he was doing. The farmer replied that its paws were adorable. Placing it on his lap, he said he should give the vendor Theo another churro pack. The cat concluded that the soft paw trick also worked on the farmer. After all, he was human. The cat thought its front paws were lucky golden paws and told the farmer it didn't have time to waste. The farmer found it a bit suspicious but still lifted the cat slightly. Then he told it that its time was up. The cat started clutching the farmer's clothes, wanting to remain a vendor for a little longer. Noticing that this wouldn't work, the cat decided it would need to use a special move to gain more time as a vendor. So it told the farmer it had something to deliver and showed him the condiments. This made Park Sejun tremble at the sight of all those spices. The cat asked what he thought since it had earned many rewards by taking pictures. The farmer could barely believe his tongue was tasting the flavor of salt once again, and even the spicy taste of that pepper and the flavors of all the spices enriched his days. The cat asked if it deserved to remain a vendor for 2 more hours. The farmer picked up the cat, lifted it into the air while dancing, and said it deserved to be a vendor for 24 hours. Park Sejun decided to grill a fish with the newly obtained salt and made a fish and vegetable skewer. The smell of the food was so good that it woke the little rabbits sleeping in their burrows. Quickly, the entire troop of rabbits was ready to enjoy the new cuisine as well. He was happy to show his rabbit friends his cooking skills. There were dehydrated sweet potatoes, roasted cherry tomatoes, fish and vegetable skewers, and grilled fish. The farmer was serving a true feast. As a precaution, he grilled the fish with pepper and salt separately. This left the choice up to everyone's individual preference. Most of the white rabbits were expected to try the seasoning. However, vendor Theo was still asleep even though it was already late. Even so, the farmer went to wake him for breakfast. Theo asked which of the two dishes he should choose. He didn't like the skewer, thinking the farmer was joking around with the divine fish. Even so, the farmer had prepared a large grilled fish so the cat could eat to its heart's content during its vendor shift. After the feast, they all returned to the hard work of farming. With his equipment, it became easier for the farmer to harvest cherry tomatoes and gain up to 70 experience points. Thanks to his skill, his harvesting proficiency increased to level 3, as it had already risen slightly. All skill proficiencies involving the short dagger now increased 5% faster, and he said it was really worth working with the vendor Theo. Theo questioned why. As the great vendor, he was still harvesting alongside him. The farmer explained that he was the president, and yet he was working. The cat was shocked to learn he was the president. Thus, Park Sejun asked him to speed up the work, and the cat wondered if the title of president was higher. With this, Theo learned something. He should work hard to become president. Once he became president, he planned to monopolize the eternal hands of the farmer. Since his backpack was already full, he said goodbye, as he had more work to do. The farmer asked that, when he passed by the store area, he should buy some things they needed. The cat agreed and said he would bring more items upon his return. Then he left. After the farmer said goodbye to his vendor cat, he noticed he needed to finish harvesting the cherry tomatoes. He realized he was already gaining 90 experience points and thought it was a lot just for picking cherry tomatoes. He was excited to see that the plantation had reached D rank and that the magical tomato now burned fat, increased mana, and even had doubled its shelf life. Almost all its attributes had doubled. Additionally, it was much tastier now. He noticed this might be due to the way it was being cultivated. He thought that, as a farmer, the level of all his crops might also be D rank. He imagined that if Theo had left a little later, he could have sold D rank cherry tomatoes too. The cat didn't know why, but somehow he felt disappointed. Meanwhile, the black dragon of the tower was observing his ice statue made by Kaiser Frattini. Somehow, he felt upset and decided to break it, placing the package of sweet potatoes he had received in its place. He placed it where the statue was, treating it as something valuable, since the storage was infused with a magical spell that would preserve it forever. It was a gift made especially by Sejun, his human. He decided to check on the farm and asked the crystal ball to reveal it. He found it adorable to see him relaxing and taking a nap, unaware of the dangers around him. Because of this, he thought Sejun should explore the area where he was, and something made him concerned. He asked the farmer to wake up urgently. Park Sejun asked what was wrong. The tower administrator warned that it wasn't the best time to sleep. Looking up, Park Sejun saw the red bear watching them. Scared, he screamed that there was a monster and told it to go away. However, it was just a poor bear cub, already at the edge of the cave entrance, and it ended up slipping. The farmer noticed it was a cub and that it had fallen off the edge of the cave entrance. He ran to try to catch it before it hit the ground and got injured. With agility, he managed to catch the little bear before the worst happened. However, looking at the red animal in his arms, he thought it might be a dog. But the status window opened above the animal's head, revealing it was a baby crimson giant bear. The bear, looking at the human, seemed to want to communicate. Looking at the animal and after identifying it in the status window, he knew it was a giant baby. He realized this was the offspring of the monster he had seen some blue moons ago. He carefully observed the little bear and thought that, despite its scary look, it was extremely small and cute. The tower administrator wanted to know why he caught the giant baby as it was falling. The farmer thought it was dangerous to let it fall. However, the administrator warned him to quickly send the baby out of the cave. But the farmer didn't think it was right to send such a small bear away on its own. He thought something might happen to it. He believed it would be better to wait for its mother to come and get it. The administrator explained that crimson giant bears were gluttonous monsters that would want to eat all the food in the cave. The farmer thought he was mistaken since the bear was so tiny. Besides, the black fighter rabbit had already befriended the crimson bear. Noticing the bear's presence, the bees began to swarm around it in a battle formation. The bear walked toward them, which was enough to make them feel obligated to protect their queen. This frightened the little bear, who sought protection near the farmer. The farmer assured the bees that the bear was not an enemy but a friend of his and everyone else. He told the bear that the bees only acted that way because it had approached them too quickly. He asked a favor from the queen bee, to produce a certain amount of honey and deliver it to the bear. The farmer knew the bear would like it, as he assumed the bear had come because of the scent. The small, gentle, and affectionate bear, after finishing its portion of honey, raised its arms so the farmer could pick it up. The tower administrator trembled at the possible reaction of the bear's mother. A new mission was issued: send the baby bear away, gaining a work skill in return. The farmer was upset with the administrator, as it was just a baby. He didn't understand why the administrator acted that way. The farmer argued that the bear wouldn't have fallen into that cave if the administrator hadn't scared it away. The bear was frightened and apprehensive, which was why it stayed in the farmer's arms, despite the administrator insisting it was a mistake, and demanding that he obey immediately. Park Sejun couldn't comply, as he had also been told his entry into the tower was a mistake. Now, however, he was happy and loved by a large family, and he couldn't simply discard the little bear like that. The rabbits, along with the bees, waited for the farmer's reaction. The administrator, watching through his crystal ball, also felt sorry for the poor bear and told the farmer to do as he wished. He wondered how much that small creature could eat for the administrator to act so jealously. The farmer decided he would send the bear away when the time came. He asked the baby bear to stand up, saying the scary thing was gone. However, the baby bear was too tired and ended up falling asleep in the farmer's arms. The farmer placed the bear on a little bed made of green onion leaves and watched it sleep. He thought it could stay there for the night. The next day, he would send the bear out of the cave. However, they both ended up falling asleep. While the farmer slept, the bear got up and began exploring the rabbit's home. The black fighter rabbit couldn't sleep well, so it got up earlier than the others. It was shocked by the mess the little bear had made in the plantation. The loud commotion woke the farmer, who wanted to know what was going on and where the baby was. Unaware of the issue, all the rabbits were extremely angry. But when he looked at the farm and saw all the destruction, he realized the storage was also gone. He saw it was all the work of the little bear, who had made a huge mess. The bear had gone to the storage and eaten about a third of the sweet potatoes and carrots. It only disliked the tomatoes. The bear ran to the farmer's arms upon noticing the angry rabbits, who might retaliate. Although it had caused a mess, it was just a baby bear and didn't know it was wrong. When the farmer tried to lift the bear, he noticed it had grown significantly in just one day, almost reaching the size of the rabbits. For a moment, he forgot he was inside the tower, where things grew very quickly. Now, with everything that had happened, he thought he should have listened to the tower administrator. The administrator explained that crimson bear cubs were voracious eaters, consuming up to 100 kilograms of food daily. However, the farmer believed the administrator was just jealous of the baby bear. Even after all the destruction, the farmer thought it wasn't a good idea to send it away, and he didn't even know how to do it. He tied a green onion rope around the bear. He calmed it down, saying everything was fine, and asked the rabbits to pull when ready. The rabbits and bees began pulling the bear out of the cave. They were making progress, but the bear was heavy and started to struggle. Seeing this, the farmer gave it some honey to calm it down. He told the bear it needed to leave because its mother was waiting for it. The bear was almost out of the cave. After sending the bear away, the administrator acknowledged the mission was complete and granted him a skill. Even so, the farmer was worried whether the bear would make it home safely. Park Sejun and the rabbits were hungry and thought it was time to eat. A few days later, the harvest was restored, and they noticed a large shadow. It was the baby bear, now much bigger, and with it was its mother. The farmer, upon seeing this, thought something had gone terribly wrong. He wasn't sure what the crimson bear's mother wanted at the cave entrance. He became anxious, thinking she might be there to eat him. He was so frightened he even imagined the scene of her grabbing him and eating him for having kidnapped her cub. In his thoughts, he said goodbye to his father, mother, and even his brother Seedal. Kneeling, he told the bear that he wasn't tasty, and that he only ate tomatoes. However, the tower administrator explained that the bears were not planning to threaten him. The farmer asked if the administrator understood what they were saying. He replied that he did and that the mother bear only wanted him to feed the cub with some honey. Suddenly, she started growling louder. The administrator said she was offering a trade. In exchange for feeding her cub, she could offer protection. Then the bear smiled and extended her paw as a sign of agreement. Her paw was so large that it touched the cave floor. The bunnies were pleased to see that the bear wasn't there to attack them. Park Sejun agreed to the deal and promised to give honey to the cub. The tower administrator told him to climb onto the crimson giant bear's paw. And so the farmer did. He climbed onto the paw of the giant bear, and slowly, she lifted him off the ground. From above, he could see his crops and felt grateful, as everything had grown very well inside the cave. He was happy to finally leave that place and see the true world of the tower, beyond the cave. As he exited, something bright blinded his eyes, as he was used to the dim light inside the cave. When he could finally see the outside, he was amazed. He was still on the bear's paw. He thought everything looked vast and wondered if he was still inside the tower. From a distance, he saw something resembling a beam. The tower administrator explained that it was a passage point. He explained that the passage point was the only means for hunters outside the tower to move between floors. He thought that if he could pass through a point, he might reach the first floor and exit the tower. However, he didn't know how to get there, as he would first have to cross the desert. He thought it would be impossible for him to walk such a long distance. After descending from the bear's paw, he hugged the little cub and pointed at the giant bear, asking if she could take him there. The administrator explained that the giant bear refused, as that place wasn't part of her territory. He said it would be necessary to defeat about 3,000 monsters to reach the passage point. The bear also explained that her territory extended from inside the forest to the area surrounding that place. She couldn't protect him if he left her territory. Feeling disappointed, he said he understood. The black rabbit, his friend, had carried his backpack out of the cave. The bear cub already liked the black rabbit very much and even hugged him. The little rabbit returned the hug. The mother bear sniffed the farmer, and he realized she wanted honey, so he handed her the small bottle he had. This made the bear cub happy, and his mother was pleased to see him content. When the farmer offered honey to the mother, she said it was fine if only the cub consumed it. The mother bear was happy because the cub had grown a lot in just one day, thanks to the farmer. She remembered that the honey was so good that they had run out of stock. The mother bear said the honey, with its especially sweet scent, helped, and the bee became shy upon noticing how good the honey was. Then he asked if the mother bear had been hungry that day since there was nothing to eat in that place. She said she had been starving for 3 days while searching for that cave. He thought that, although babies were important, she shouldn't have acted that way. He said such a situation couldn't happen again, so he issued a challenge to the black rabbit. With his pots, he would showcase his cooking skills. Sijuan returned to the cave. Together with the rabbits and bees, they were preparing a great meal for the mother bear. It looked like soup or stew. The appearance was wonderful, and the farmer tasted it to check if it was ready. He had made a feast of fish stew with carrots and tomatoes. He offered it to the mother bear, who ate outside the cave. He thought the mother should eat well, so the cub could grow up healthy and well-fed. The bear felt grateful and lifted the farmer to hug him, along with the rabbits. The administrator observed and noticed that she was thankful to the farmer. The dragon was restless, as he had been watching over them since the baby bear left the cave. He was worried that the cub might call his mother to attack the human. However, the bear decided to establish friendly relations. For this reason, he emphasized that he would pass the message on to the human. However, he didn't expect the situation to end like this. He thought that if the bear left, he might get to eat more. After all, his area of operation would expand if that giant crimson bear became his bodyguard. As expected, he was quiet. He was a genius dragon, celebrating his brilliant idea. At the headquarters of the Wandering Merchants Inspection Department, the officers were taking action. Theo the cat's record was being analyzed by the person in charge of the department. It was observed that some information was missing. However, it seemed he wasn't particularly skilled as a merchant. More information about the cat would soon arrive. Reports stated that after the incident of the warehouse theft from a major property on the 55th floor, a request was made for a report listing the stolen items. The person in charge noticed from the reports that the ruthless owner lived off the backs of the peasants. Because of this, the inspection department headquarters intervened to search for thieves like Scarum. Another officer entered to report the progress made in the inspection. They had received the report from the inspection agent monitoring the cat's movements. The person in charge planned to review the list later, but for now, would personally investigate the wandering merchant Theo. And when it came to the honor of the Wandering Merchants Inspection Department, such things couldn't be left unresolved. Meanwhile, inside the cave, the farmer greeted the mother bear and her cub. Wishing the mother bear good morning, he asked her to lift him again. 3 days had passed since he made an agreement with the giant crimson mother bear. He was also feeding her every day to make her strong enough to patrol the area. The giant crimson mother bear would leave her cub with him in the morning and go on patrol. After leaving the cave, the rabbits and he began gradually moving items and cleaning the area. However, the situation outside was entirely different from the fertile underground. Outside, there were many small stones, and the ground was very dry. It seemed it would be difficult for crops to grow. To his surprise, the bear cub knew how to scratch the soil in a way that made it easy to separate the stones. The cub softened the soil while the rabbits collected the stones and transported them in their carts. After the bear cub finished its work perfectly, the farmer rewarded it with a sweet potato. He noticed that in just a few days, the cub had grown to a height similar to his own. He started planting potato roots since the soil seemed barren, opting to plant roots first. However, when he looked back, the bear cub was digging up and eating all the potatoes he had planted. He had no choice but to scold the cub, as it acted like it was searching for treasure. He told the cub it had eaten all the hard work of the sweet potato plantation. He explained that if the cub stayed, it needed to learn the concept of farming. On the 38th floor, the cat began auctioning a batch of 300 cherry tomatoes, announcing a total of 1,800 tomatoes. Bidding started low, between 25 and 27 tower coins for 300 tomatoes. He noticed less enthusiasm than last time. It would be great if another wealthy buyer appeared. As he was about to leave, he noticed the leader of the Phoenix Guild calling him and informing him the contract was fulfilled. The guild leader also passed along a message for Park Sijuan, saying he had spoken to the family, and they were all fine. The cat wanted to know why the guild leader hadn't participated in the auction. The man said he was looking for something besides tomatoes. He asked the cat if he could take a picture with him, as his daughter loved cats. As a reward, he gave the cat a package of Korean red pepper. However, the cat tasted the pepper raw. By the time the man tried to warn him, it was too late. The cat spent most of the day with his tongue burning. Afterward, he went to the Wandering Merchant's Center to upgrade his backpack. This allowed him to carry more items, and he thought it was worth investing the incentives he earned. At that pace, he could save up 1,000 tower coins and also become an intermediate level merchant. He decided to stop by the shop alley to finish the human's task, but a smell caught his attention. It was a skewer stall. He thought he should stop by to ease the burning on his tongue. He bought a skewer and asked for a discount. He was pleased to get a discount at the skewer stall too. He left satisfied, eating his fish skewer. However, he was stopped by someone. It was the person he had helped the other day, preventing Scarum from scamming another wandering merchant. However, the person thought it was the cat who had disrupted the operation they had been managing for so long. Introducing himself, he said his name was Zirith, and the cat asked if that person had any problems. The fox said it wasn't that but wanted to repay the favor he had done last time with a gift. However, the cat refused and said it wasn't necessary, as he was busy and about to leave. The fox insisted, suggesting they have tea together. The cat replied that he didn't like drinking hot beverages. Even so, the fox persisted and said they could have dessert instead. But the cat retorted, saying he didn't like sweet things either. The fox thought the cat was being very firm in his decisions. With no other option, the fox sat on the ground and started throwing a tantrum, pleading for the cat to listen kindly. The cat asked why she was suddenly sitting on the ground throwing a tantrum. The fox revealed that she wanted to learn merchant skills. She said she was very impressed when she saw him expose the deceit of the cruel Scarin. She declared that she respected Mr. Theo and wanted to learn merchant skills from him. She added that he was incredible, cool, and a wonderful traveling merchant. Those words flattered the cat, who liked being called an incredible traveling merchant. He responded to the fox that, since she put it that way, he could teach her a little of what he knew. The fox thought this technique had never been shared with anyone and that he was just a careless beginner. The cat asked the fox to stand up, saying it was very embarrassing to see an adult sitting on the ground. Zirith wanted to know where the cat was going at that moment. He explained that he had things to buy. He said he would stop by the blacksmith's alley, which put the fox on alert. When she asked if he was trying to buy things to resell, the cat said she would understand when she saw it. The blacksmith's alley was a diverse place where various goods were sold. The fox walked past the stalls, looking at some tools, and a dagger caught her attention. She pointed to the small shop for the cat, who wasn't interested, and explained that he didn't buy such insignificant items. Zirith wondered what kind of exceptional item the cat wanted while the cat found a place that looked promising. He knocked on the door to enter. It wasn't quite what the fox had in mind. The two entered and looked for the owner. They noticed it was a place with unassessed or unique items. The fox wondered to herself what kind of merchant skills he could teach in such a place. She asked the merchant if the sign outside, stating that all items cost 20 tower coins, was correct. The merchant confirmed it, saying that any unassessed item was priced the same. Before even selecting a purchase, the cat was already asking for a discount, and the fox noticed that this was a merchant's skill. Zirith found it impressive that the cat wanted a discount in a place that already sold items at a discount. And the most impressive part was that the owner gave him a 2 tower coin discount. However, the cat wanted an even bigger discount. The owner said he was very bold. He stated that 15 tower coins were the best he could do, giving the cat a 5 coin discount. Still, the cat thought it wasn't enough and pushed to buy the item for 13 tower coins, securing a 7 coin discount. He argued that he would frequent the place often and, therefore, deserved a bigger discount. The merchant found this amusing. The fox thought the cat was indeed an incredible merchant. However, he was just being stubborn. She asked what he was trying to buy in that place. He picked up a wooden box with a large hat. The fox didn't understand why he wanted something so specific. It wasn't even a weapon, just a straw hat. The shop owner asked if she had any complaints about the store. The fox quickly said no. The cat remarked that Zirith was being annoying. The fox apologized, even though she didn't know why she should. Nevertheless, she did. However, he liked the hat and decided to buy it since the farmer had told him to purchase things he liked. He left the store satisfied, feeling he had made a good purchase. He told the fox he had already taken a good look at everything and asked if the merchant techniques were helpful. He hoped she would become a good merchant. Then he said goodbye, leaving the fox behind. The fox let him go, thinking it would be strange to keep following him. Besides, she decided she needed to retreat. But he remembered something related to the hat he had bought. He spotted the person leaving, singing and happy with the hat. The hat was part of a select list. However, the fox thought it was impossible for him to know that or for it to really be that hat. Inside the cave, The farmer was shaking the branches of dried flowers to collect seeds. The carrot flower sprouts had grown earlier than expected. He decided to plant half of them in the cave. They planned to reduce the stored carrots by half due to the bear cub. He noticed the rabbits trembling again and asked if they were already hungry. The menu was fish soup, and they could clean the fish together with the leaf rabbit. He decided to grab some cherry tomatoes for the mother rabbit, who had recently lost her appetite. He noticed that his harvesting skill level had increased to 3, with a 5% boost. New effects were added. He felt happy to be able to enjoy even tastier cherry tomatoes. The additional skill effects and work skill leveled up to 4. But it wasn't time to get distracted. He needed to feed the rabbits and began organizing things to prepare the food. The fish soup for the pregnant rabbit was ready and was delivered to her. It was a special soup filled with love. The farmer told the rabbit that even without an appetite, she should eat because health was very important for pregnant mothers. The husband rabbit was trying to encourage her to eat, placing food in her mouth, as they would soon have more babies. The bear also arrived, and the farmer told him he came at the right time. He was leaving the cave under the care of the cart rabbit and the strong rabbit. He tied the food basket and asked the bear to pull it. He created a pulley system. Quickly, it was up high. A few days ago, with the help of the giant crimson mother bear, they had used a stone as a pulley. They managed to build a manual elevator. They were starting the day with the bear cub. He remembered asking for just a stone to tie a rope. Climbing was different on the 99th floor. After climbing with the cub, who had done a great job, he noticed how robust and strong it had become. He realized the cub pulled quickly only because it wanted to eat, not because it missed him. The farmer had prepared several sweet potatoes for the bear to eat for breakfast since it always ate them raw. The bear's eyes sparkled with excitement at the sight of the sweet potatoes, eager to taste them as soon as possible. However, it was advised to eat slowly to avoid choking and because the supply could run out quickly. When it saw that only one cooked sweet potato remained in the basket, the bear had an idea. It ran and dug a hole to plant it. The farmer asked what it was doing. He realized the bear wanted to plant the cooked sweet potatoes so it could grow and be eaten later. The bear's behavior made the farmer and the rabbits roll on the ground with laughter. Its face was incredibly cute, but they were shocked when the farmer explained that cooked potatoes couldn't grow. The farmer hadn't laughed so much in a long time. He told the bear he would make more sweet potatoes for it since it liked them so much. However, he was startled to see the bear had also planted fish heads and tails. He realized the bear needed extra farming lessons. The bear became sad because, despite its efforts, it was doing everything wrong. Meanwhile, the bee's hive looked like a castle, very beautiful, but the queen seemed sad. She sat inside her hive holding something that made her extremely worried. The bear cub and the black fighter rabbit constantly trained their fighting style. Despite its small size, the rabbit wasn't afraid of the bear's size and attacked relentlessly. However, the bear, being large, barely felt the rabbit's attacks, thinking it was just playing. It would pull the rabbit into a soft hug, even as the rabbit tried to attack it multiple times. This left the farmer confused. He didn't know if they were training or just playing. He was lost in thought when the cart rabbit arrived, offering cherry tomato juice. As he sat drinking his juice from a carrot cup, he noticed something unusual in the hive. It seemed that the venomous bees were patrolling. When he saw the queen, he greeted her. She was holding something. He wanted to know why she had left since she was laying eggs. She seemed sad and worried. However, she handed him something to take care of. After that, she and the other bees departed. He unwrapped what the queen had given him to see what it was. Upon opening it, he noticed it was a cocoon of a poisonous queen bee. The bee larva had accidentally ingested royal jelly, and that was the cocoon of the poisonous queen bee. He understood because it had been a long time since the queen bee had become queen. Thus, her power as the leader of the hive was not very strong. Having a new queen born in a hive that wasn't ready to be divided meant the already weak power would be further diminished. For that reason, she gave the cocoon to the farmer. The poisonous queen bee regarded it as a precious offspring. He resolved to work hard so it could become a poisonous queen moth bee. He gazed at the cocoon, saying he looked forward to the day he could finally see the moth emerge from it. Approaching the cave, singing and rolling, was Theo the cat, finally arriving. He thought the farmer would kneel, allowing him to exercise his authority as boss. He found it odd when he saw something in front of him. He asked who it was and what it was doing there. Upon seeing the bear with the human's backpack, he panicked and demanded it leave. For a moment, he thought the bear had eaten the farmer, feeling very sad and upset. He imagined his dark thoughts were never wrong, and his intuition had been correct. He thought he needed to flee as quickly as possible. He was deeply saddened for not making the most of his time as a merchant cat, now thinking he had lost his chance. So, he planned his revenge, to scratch the bear's face until he felt avenged. However, the farmer told Theo to stop and was glad he had arrived. Theo abandoned his plan to scratch the bear's face but remained suspicious. Even so, he jumped onto the human's face. Seeing that the farmer was fine, he asked if the bear had bitten any part of his body. He jumped to check if the farmer's knees were fine, considering the height of the fall he might have endured. He asked who the giant red bear was. The human replied that he would explain one thing at a time. He told the cat that, as he could see, it was a giant red bear cub. He explained that when the cub fell into the cave, he made a deal with the mother to protect the surroundings in exchange for food. The cat thought the farmer had been eaten by the bear, but Park Seo-joon understood the reaction. Even so, he found it odd to keep calling the cub a giant red bear and wanted to give it a name. He asked the cat to ask the bear its name, but the cub didn't know. Park Seo-joon decided to give it a name, at least temporarily, and thought he had a truly incredible one. He decided to call it Quing because the cub kept making that sound. The cat and the rabbits were amazed by the farmer's proficiency in naming. Theo commented that the farmer had no sense for naming beings. Even so, he thought it was a good name and asked the cub what it thought. Later, he started tickling the cub, who greatly enjoyed the human's affection. This made the cat jealous, and he demanded the farmer stop and pay attention to him. He mentioned that he had completed all the tasks and sold everything. He wanted to know how much merchant time he still had. Park replied that it was 38 hours. He then placed the cat on his lap and began feeding him some churu. This made the merchant cat very happy, but his special moment was quickly interrupted. Quing the bear also wanted to try some and seemed to like it a lot. However, the cat didn't appreciate this, and the farmer had to hold him back to stop him from attacking the bear. The bear, feeling intimidated, cried very loudly, causing the forest to tremble. In a fraction of a second, a red light was seen in the sky. The mother bear heard her cub was in distress and prepared to defend it at all costs. She quickly appeared around her cub, glaring at the cat with a severe look. Park Seo-joon and Theo realized the situation was becoming dire. Now everyone was in big trouble. Theo regretted getting angry at the bear since his monstrous mother was now standing in front of him. The cat, intimidated, sweating, and trembling, said hello to the mother bear, claiming to be the merchant cat. He showed his badge shaped like a brooch, proving he was a merchant. Even as he explained that the incident between him and the cub was a misunderstanding, the mother bear remained upset. It growled non-stop in his direction and began something with its little cub. The cat, deeply regretful and in tears, apologized and promised not to fight with the bear anymore. Park Seo-joon explained it was just a small argument and that, in reality, nothing serious had happened. Although the mother bear didn't appreciate the cat's unpleasant behavior, after the human's intervention, she left. Even so, the scare the cat experienced was significant, and the human also thought it could have been worse. The kitten cried to the point of sobbing and was very grateful to the farmer for defending him. Nevertheless, Park Seo-joon apologized, feeling he should have intervened sooner. The fighter rabbit was the first to comfort the cat, and the others soon followed. Seeing that everyone was trying to cheer up the cat and the human, the bear also felt like approaching. It lowered its ears, realizing it had overreacted and caused its mother to get mad at the cat. It slowly moved closer to the cat and the farmer. Quing offered comfort to the merchant cat, who assured him they would be great friends. The cat also asked the bear not to eat his snacks anymore. After that scare, everyone seemed to grow sleepy. They all became quite drowsy. The rabbits came out to see what had caused such a commotion, but they found a calm atmosphere. When one rabbit noticed the cat's bag with a piece of the hat sticking out, it got excited. It showed another rabbit, who pointed toward the human. Seeing that everyone was asleep, they all seemed cozy together, making the ground soft and perfect for a nap. The two rabbits looked at each other and seemed to have an idea. One of them placed the hat on the human's head. Then, the pair of rabbits snuggled up nearby for a nap as well. Meanwhile, outside the tower, somewhere else, dragons were gathering. They were trying to perform a ritual involving a very bright stone in the center. That stone was another entrance to the tower, but it wasn't opening. The young Anton Furtani asked Mr. Kaiser to calm down. However, the elder was very agitated and couldn't calm down before speaking with Aileen. It had been 10 years and many days since the last time a convulsion occurred. The tower's emergency system wasn't responding, so there was no way to cross over. He believed this was proof that Aileen hadn't suffered a convulsion and that there was still time. He understood how Mr. Kaiser felt. After all, they were all Furtani and were there because of Aileen. The administrator's room was at the center of all the mana that supported the tower. The dragons took turns managing the tower and used that place to grow stronger. Even so, all the dragons vacated that place to allow Aileen to recover. To find the remedy for Aileen, they had to take great risks, facing many dangers and enduring losses. Everyone there felt deeply for her. Anton tried explaining this to Kaiser, who was distraught by the situation. Kaiser knew there was nothing he could do, even though Anton said those things. Still, his son tried to calm him. Anton himself remained calm. Aileen was his daughter, and even so, he tried to stay composed. He believed in her more than anyone else. Kaiser, albeit reluctantly, decided to try to stay calm since his son was confident. Even so, he ordered the Furtani dragons to remain on standby until the tower opened. They all dispersed to carry out the leader's orders. Anton asked his father if he thought there had been any change in Aileen's dragon heart. They hoped so. Even so, he prayed that his granddaughter was well, as they couldn't enter the tower. Meanwhile, the tower administrator was healthy and happy, eating her cherry tomatoes. She was lounging on a pink slipper, reading her book, and savoring her favorite snack. She noticed the flavor of the tomatoes had become stronger since the farmer reached rank D. Previously, she needed to fill her mouth to taste them. Now, just a few were enough. But something happened to her heart. She noticed it beat slightly. This startled her because it hadn't beaten even once in the past 200 years. Her heart moved on its own and absorbed mana for a while. She wondered if she might have had a convulsion at that exact moment. Perhaps it was because of the cherry tomatoes, a human crop that gradually increased her mana. She had forgotten this characteristic. She thought they were just delicious, but they even had the ability to heal a dragon's heart. She was now happier than before. She was the great black dragon Aileen Furtani, 200 years old, and she had finally found someone she truly wanted to protect. Now she would protect the tower farmer, Park Sejuan, and believed he should feel honored. She noticed he had obtained an unassessed item while she wasn't looking, thinking he was unstoppable. Meanwhile, he was lying down, leaning on the red bear, and wearing the hat. Park Sejuan woke up to messages from the tower administrator asking about the consequences. However, the messages were so close together that he could barely make out what they wanted from him. The tower administrator warned him of the dangers of using unassessed items carelessly. That's when he realized he was wearing the straw hat. The rabbit showed him it had found the hat in the backpack, and the farmer concluded that the cat must have brought it. He tried to wake the cat, but Theo refused, preferring to sleep a little longer. There was no way. The cat absolutely did not want to be awakened and continued sleeping. Then the farmer observed something about the hat in the status window. The usage restriction was for level 20. The administrator insisted that he should send the hat for assessment first, and he asked her to assign him a quest. She issued the quest to send the unassessed hat for examination. When she took the hat, she inspected it and decided to showcase her skills. Using her appraisal ability, she found it was indeed a good item, which made the administrator happy. She created a new quest. He was to present her with a harvest full of the energy of the blue moonlight on the next blue moon. He thought the blue moon was already close and that his crops might grow more by then, so he promised. She told him to pinky swear as a promise and started stating her name. He should feel honored. He repeated her name and said she didn't need to have gone to such lengths. Hearing this, she became irritated but quickly turned cheerful again, stomping her feet and declaring it was a great honor. Then he said he was honored to know her name. Park Sejuan promised to give the harvest to Aileen Furtani and made the pinky swear. The tower administrator remarked that it was the first promise he had ever made to her. He didn't understand what she meant by that. In the crystal ball, she saw him making the pinky promise, and moved, she did the same gesture on her end. She was thrilled to have her first promise made with a human. She told him he had completed the mission, and the reward would be an artifact. He acquired St. Patrick's straw hat of the earth. She returned the hat to him. The artifact was related to agricultural work. He was pleased because it was one of the tower's artifacts. This was the first time he had heard of a named piece of equipment. The level and attribute restrictions, which originally prevented its use, disappeared. The artifact's class was evaluated, indicating that its abilities would grow depending on the user's work level. The status windows updated the artifact's class. St. Patrick's straw hat of the earth advanced to D class. The class and skill restrictions were lifted, and the Mother Earth's protection skill increased to level 3. The item's options were so marvelous that he could hardly believe he owned one of the 10 artifacts of the tower. The item was incredible, with essential abilities for cultivating the desolate land outside the cave. As expected, Theo truly had golden paws. His intuition was spot on. The farmer hugged his beloved and wonderful merchant cat, Theo. He even kissed the marvelous little paws. The cat woke up startled, asking what he was doing. The farmer informed Theo that he would be the merchant cat for a week. Theo wanted to know what was happening for him to be promoted. With the cat in his hands, the farmer twirled him around, calling him the merchant cat. Theo was very excited, now officially merchant cat Theo. The rabbits were anxious, their excitement evident as they tapped their little paws. The farmer, too, tapped his feet in anticipation, causing the cat's body to tremble. Theo asked if he could stop tapping his feet because it was making him very nervous. Looking at the burrow's door, the farmer noticed it had been a long time without any news. The feline remarked how hard it was to wait so long and asked if he could have a little churu. When the farmer decided to take a break, the door to the burrow suddenly opened. He asked the little rabbit who had come out how many there were and if they were all healthy. The rabbit showed a basket with 3 baby rabbits, and suddenly the father rabbit appeared holding 3 more. There were 6 in total, and that made everyone very happy. The farmer thought he should make some soup to take care of the mother rabbit. He told the cat he could come closer and commented that the babies were very cute. The cat, upon seeing them up close, noticed how tiny they were, and Park Seo-joon remarked that the cat was now an uncle. It would be good to care for the baby rabbits now that he was such a cool uncle. This excited the cat, and he pulled another pouch of churro from his hiding spot to offer to the babies. However, the farmer warned that they were too young to eat such food. He asked why the cat had been secretly hiding churro. The cat argued it was for emergencies. By then, it was already day 179 since entering the tower, and the family and its members had grown. Meanwhile, in a distant land, the bull chief was rallying his proud warriors. He told his warriors that the blue moon was approaching and that they should not give in to hunger. They were to search the desolate land for anything edible and take it. The one giving orders was the monster chief of the 99th floor, the king of bulls. Back in the cave, the farmer was satisfied with his rabbits and the bees. The status window indicated that the magical cherry tomato field would yield a great harvest. There were many flowers, more than usual, and the bees were working hard. It was the 7th blue moon they had faced since arriving at the den. He wondered if Quang and the mother bear were prepared. He heard a commotion and turned around. It was the baby rabbits running around. He was trying to keep the baby rabbits from eating food off the ground. He also showed them that fire was dangerous and could burn them. He explained that everything there was risky and that they should stay close to their uncle, who would protect them from everything. The farmer, observing, hadn't realized the cat had such intense protective instincts. Approaching him, he asked how he was doing in his role as the cool uncle and merchant Theo. The cat replied that it was tiring but very fun because he was such a cool uncle. The rabbit couple approved of the uncle, as it gave them more time to rest. The farmer called everyone to dinner, and the cat carried all the babies on his back, asking them to hold on tight. Preparing for the blue moon, the bees were already sealing off the doors of their hive. The rabbits had retreated into their burrows, both the babies and the larger pair. The farmer also felt he was fully prepared. He looked at the cat and noticed he was doing something different. The cat explained that he was climbing into his backpack to avoid the blue moon since the pack had that feature. He said it was as big as a simple tent, though other wandering merchants used tents as large as houses. The farmer asked if the merchant cat could take something with him, and handed him the cocoon he had received from the bee. He realized it was the queen bee's cocoon. The cat, very carefully, said he would keep it safe in his soft fur. The farmer then noticed the blue moon had begun and hoped the bear cub and its mother were okay. He heard a loud noise. It was the first time he had heard something so loud. He thought it might be another monster entering the mother bear's territory. To be cautious, he used earplugs and the cherry tomatoes. Even so, the noise was deafening, but then the sound stopped. He didn't know what it was, but it sounded like a cow crying. Looking at the tomatoes, he saw that the blue moon harvest had been quite large. He noticed the corn was also radiating energy. He was pleased to see that the side of the field where the corn was growing was absorbing the blue moon's energy. This was because the field was benefiting from the good harvest skill effect. When everything quieted down, the cat went out to check and said there was no one there. The farmer also went out, thinking it would be a good idea to check on the mother bear and her cub. He imagined that when the blue light appeared earlier, a monster might have been wandering near the cave. He decided to go out and check, and the cat said he would go with him, even though he was tired. They noticed several tracks. As expected, all the sweet potato crops had been uprooted. However, they didn't recognize what kind of footprints they were. The hoof prints were extremely large. They thought the owners of the footprints must have been really strong, judging by the depth and height of the mounds of dirt. He had the idea to climb up to get a view from above. The cat thought they should head back as quickly as possible. He decided to check the soil texture and, as he suspected, it was different from the sterile soil they were using. It wasn't crumbly but soft and retained moisture. He hadn't known this type of soil was beneath the barren land. The possibility of reconstructing that desert emerged. Now they could create a fertile field simply by turning the soil upside down and mixing it all together. He received a message from the tower administrator asking what he was doing up there. She warned that, even though the blue moon was on that side, monster territory was scattered around. He asked Aileen if she was doing well even after the blue moon. The tower administrator urged him to prioritize his safety as a farmer. Park Seo-joon thought she was worrying too much about him that day. He remembered that he had promised to give her the blue moon harvest. Many possibilities had opened up that day. Park Seo-joon congratulated the cat for working hard, and Theo said he was very tired and would go to sleep. The corn, touched by the blue moonlight, was glowing. The farmer decided to harvest it, which increased his experience. Inside, the corn was blue, and he found that fascinating. It was stamina corn. Perhaps it was because it was a D-class crop. The attribute increases were double those of an E-class crop. He thought this was quite significant, but even more important was the crunchy texture and flavor of the corn. The administrator asked if he had forgotten his promise. He said he hadn't, but he couldn't help it. He began harvesting the cherry tomatoes infused with blue moonlight and handed 5 to the administrator. She promised to be generous later. The farmer said he looked forward to it, although 300 years felt excessive. The dragon looked at the tomatoes containing the energy of blue moonlight. She was very pleased to have received 5 of them. Normal tomatoes could make a dragon's heart race. Blue moon tomatoes would undoubtedly be even more potent. She placed all 5 in her mouth at once and found them delicious. However, she shouldn't focus solely on the flavor. She felt something wrong with the mana flow, as if her dragon heart had a problem. With tremendous pain, she fell to the ground, as if having a severe convulsion. After handing the cherry tomatoes to Aileen, he went on to peel more blue corn. He placed them in the pot the cat had bought for him to cook. He thought the corn husks would form a stalk layer between the pot and the corn, ensuring proper cooking. He considered drying the corn leaves well to make corn silk tea, adding another beverage option. Seeing the rabbits waking up, he greeted them and asked about the babies. Seeing the father rabbit pointing toward the burrow, he concluded they must be sleeping with the mother rabbit. He showed the rabbit the harvest from the Blue Moon plantation. He mentioned they had harvested new Blue Moon corn, which was already cooking, and that they would share it. The rabbit, holding a blue cherry tomato, preferred just a blue cherry tomato and told the farmer he could eat the corn himself. Park thought this was typical of the father rabbit, who was always very grateful, unlike the others. Still, he felt it was unwise to eat everything himself. He decided to have breakfast and harvest some more corn for dinner. Meanwhile, the bees were busy patrolling the plantation. After some time, he opened the pot and saw that the corn looked delicious, though it was very hot. Since it was a D-class product infused with Blue Moon energy, it was bound to taste amazing. He decided to enjoy the food while the rabbits ate the Blue Moon tomatoes. The harvest had been plentiful, and each rabbit received 1 blue cherry tomato to eat. The father rabbit took another tomato to give to the mother rabbit. Seeing all the rabbits at peace and eating, he decided to try the corn. He found it sweet. Each kernel was delicious, with a salty sweetness that intensified with every bite. Notifications arrived, informing him he had obtained stamina corn infused with Blue Moon energy. He ate it all and was happy because it permanently increased his stamina by 0.1. He noticed that the corn cob could be used as firewood, so he decided to harvest more corn. Looking at the plantation, he saw that all the corn was ripe and began harvesting. He wanted to know the corn's effects and saw that it slightly increased his experience. When consumed by non-awakened individuals, the corn eliminated 20 g of fat and improved skin elasticity. He thought his mother would like it to improve her skin elasticity. He considered that next time, he would send some of the corn along with news about himself. Perhaps he should send some crops as well. Looking up, he noticed the mother bear and her cub were fine and told them they were welcome. Reaching the top and stepping out of the cave, he asked if they were okay and if they hadn't been hurt the night before. He brought some honey for the little bear, as it hadn't eaten anything the previous day. He told the mother bear he would bring some grilled fish for her and her cub later. The cat was still tired but told the farmer he was already on his way. The farmer wondered why he didn't rest a little longer. The cat replied that he couldn't waste his time as a merchant cat just sleeping. The cat asked to be taken to the wandering market corridor. However, the little bear grabbed the cat by the cape and said it would take him there with its mother. So, the farmer bid farewell to the bears, asking them to return safely. Looking at the ground, he realized he would need to rebuild the field that had been destroyed. Elsewhere, the bulls were gathering and bringing everything they had collected during the Blue Moon to their master. The chief was irritated because it seemed bull number 1 had brought mud, and bull number 2 dry soil. Angry, he said it was all just mud and asked how they dared to bring such things. When he had said to fetch food, they brought only mud. One of them tried to explain to the captain that it had been a long time since they had seen grass in their territory. He said that even after ripping everything out, there was nothing but mud. The bull chief became desolate. He didn't understand why this was happening. Once, it had been a vast, green field full of grass. This was the strongest monster of the Black Tower, guarding the passage to the 99th floor, the Black Minotaur. And if he didn't replenish the energy drained by the Blue Moon, they could lose their muscles. So, the Black Bull ordered his subordinates to spread across the territory and eat grass during the Blue Moon. However, the Minotaur race was large, and their rate of grass consumption far exceeded the rate at which it grew. Eventually, the area became a barren land where not a single blade of grass grew. The muscles of the young, newborn Minotaurs didn't look very good. They searched for bull number 3 but were told he had found another territory. As they began talking about him, he arrived, apologizing for being late. He explained that when the Blue Moon ended and he opened his eyes, he found himself far away. The captain asked if he was alright. However, he seemed uneasy and sweaty. The captain noticed something on number 3's head and asked what it was. It looked like a delicious, fragrant root stuck to his horn. He didn't know how to explain what it was. Elsewhere, after some time, the dragoness managed to stand, though her head hurt a lot. She realized she had lost consciousness and thought she would be fine. As she stood, she noticed the chandelier touched her and wondered why the light was so low. But upon looking down, she realized she had grown. It wasn't the light that was lower. She noticed she had somehow grown taller during the time she was unconscious. Realizing she had grown significantly, the dragoness thought it might be related to the blue moon tomatoes. Since she had eaten 5 at once, she believed it had caused a chain reaction in her heart. It was only temporary, but her dragon heart was no longer reacting at that moment. She wondered if a permanent treatment might be possible, but even so, she felt happy. She trusted that her dragon heart could heal, even if only slightly, thanks to the tower's farmer. She noticed he was eating something, but she couldn't see what it was. The crystal ball had become so small that she couldn't clearly see what he was eating. She wished for a large crystal ball, like the one her grandfather used to have. But when she tried to leave through the door, she realized it was smaller. She shouted that she wanted to eat tasty things too. Meanwhile, in the cave, the little bear greeted the rabbits and bees. The farmer told the little captain that he had done a great job. He asked them to finish notifying the others to gather for dinner. He planned to serve steamed corn. He was holding the small rabbits to prevent any accidents. The status window displayed a message from the tower administrator saying she would like to try corn as well. He told her he would give it to her anyway, but he was grilling corn and would serve everything together. She said she could wait. He instructed the rabbits to place the corn in the ideal spots. Everything was looking beautiful. It was a feast for the eyes. The spices the cat had brought were a blessing for seasoning the grilled corn. He sprinkled sugar on the corn and grilled it until it turned golden brown. Then, he sprinkled some Parmesan cheese over the boiled corn, wondering who might have brought cheese for the meal. To finish, he grabbed a bag of chili powder he had found among the cat's belongings. He even thought the cat should be disqualified as a merchant for hiding such a treasure from him. He sprinkled a bit of chili powder on the corn, achieving the perfect consistency. Upon tasting it, he noticed the sweet and salty flavor, with a hint of spice, reminded him of his home world. He asked the tower administrator to enjoy the corn he was sending her. He inquired whether they were enjoying the delicious taste of the corn. However, when he looked at the rabbit couple, he noticed they weren't eating because of the babies. Realizing their difficulty in removing the kernels from the cob, he suggested using a spoon. He demonstrated how to do it, showing them they wouldn't have to feed the babies kernel by kernel anymore. They could eat on their own. He encouraged the couple to start eating, assuring them he would take care of the little ones. The baby rabbits quickly climbed all over him, and he realized how mischievous they were. He told the little rabbits that behaving like this would drive the farmer crazy. He thought that working and taking care of the babies wasn't easy. At that moment, he missed the cat. He began writing in his journal about his time being lost in the tower, while everyone enjoyed the corn together. Meanwhile, the Phoenix team was waiting for the merchant to arrive with the tomatoes. They had even set up a camp to wait, as he was taking longer than usual. They discussed how purchases were now made through auctions, and others were buying them at higher prices. This left them without tomatoes. A single cherry tomato was going for as much as 500,000. They asked their leader what they should do and whether they should prepare to enter the tower for the scheduled attack. However, they had no other choice. They couldn't just wait there. They left a few people to participate in the auction, while the rest headed to the tower. Those who stayed participated in the auction, while the others departed. The leader thought Jessica would stay since she loved tomatoes so much, but was surprised to see Suha. She explained that her friend had given up her spot, as she no longer needed to lose weight. Now she would take part in the auction. They asked if she was interested in the cherry tomatoes, and she replied no. She was more interested in giving Chur to Theo the cat. The leader, smiling, understood her concern. He also thought the cat was a very charming character. Meanwhile, the cat was walking through the forest. He was already tired, thinking that this time the passage for wandering merchants was taking longer than usual. He noticed that the passage seemed larger, but he didn't know how to reach his destination. He walked along with other merchants as the line moved little by little. When it was his turn, they asked him to provide his agency and classification. He explained that he was a novice wandering merchant and wanted to use the regular merchant's passage. When he mentioned he was heading to the 38th floor, some shadowy creatures with red eyes began watching him. They had a photo of him for comparison and concluded he was indeed that cat. They belonged to the Silver Wolf tribe. One told another that the resemblance was obvious, but he didn't have the hat with him. Elke asked the wolf chief why their leader was so interested in the straw hat. Elke replied that it didn't matter. The Silver Wolf tribe was the best in the tower's free markets. They asked if everyone had brought their merchant association IDs. Zereth, who was keeping an eye on the Silver Wolves, didn't understand why they were after the cat. Then he thought it might be related to the hat, and realized there were some truly troublesome individuals there. He decided to follow along. unsure of what might happen in the tunnel's path. Meanwhile, outside the cave, they were working to restore the soil damaged during the blue moon. They thought they would start planting that day. He told the bears to get ready. He showed the bag of peanut seeds to the rabbits. He had already harvested the remaining corn in the morning and leveled up 6 times. Increasing agility had been worth it. Additionally, there was a small change in the seed shop. When he looked at the peanut seeds, he saw they were a good deal. They could restore soil fertility and grew well even in difficult, barren environments. So, he purchased peanut seeds for 5 tower coins, bringing his total loyalty points to 106. The seed shop required 100 points to level up, and this made him very satisfied. His rank increased from novice to commoner, and at this level, 4 types of seeds would be displayed randomly. He was pleased that the number of seed types he could purchase had increased from 3 to 4. He was eager to see how many varieties he could buy since he needed new and diverse seeds. Corn, once harvested, wouldn't produce more fruit. Everyone was satisfied and friendly. He thanked the bear for helping. They cut all the corn stalks and spread them on the ground to cover the area around the field where the peanuts would be planted. This was to prevent moisture from evaporating, as the sun shone all day long there. This way, he could delay the irrigation period slightly, freeing up time to use labor elsewhere. He had already finished collecting the corn seeds to plant next time. The little rabbits, seeing the shelled corn, wanted to eat it. He told them this time it wasn't food for them. He figured they weren't hungry, just bored. However, he was busy expanding the field outside the cave. Still, he had a good idea. The baby rabbits could have a fun job. He gave them small bags to transport some seeds and help out. However, they began snacking prematurely. He asked them not to do that since he'd have to refill the bags. He asked the supply unit to go ahead and deliver food to the other rabbits. This would keep them busy and ensure the others were well fed for a while. Even so, he thought the little ones were like kindergarten students. Elsewhere, in a distant land, the minotaurs were roaming, and number 3 had to find the right place. Since he was caught with a juicy root stuck to his horn, he now had to find where he got it and bring it back to them. However, he explained he had lost his memory due to the blue moon and had no idea where he found it. The captain, who had never seen such a thing in his territory, was intrigued. He decided to taste it and found the flavor delicious. He wanted more because the more he chewed, the sweeter and juicier the root became. It was so good that he felt energized, and his muscles were pumping again. He ordered number 3 to find the place where that grass grew because the future of the Minotaur race depended on it. Now, number 3 thought that if he didn't find it, the captain might strike him with those massive muscles. At the border between the forest and the wasteland, number 3 was apprehensive. He feared encountering the red bears, knowing they were dangerous. However, a pleasant smell caught his attention, and he found the grass. Additionally, the soil was rich with nutrients and looked delicious. He thanked the food as he grabbed and ate some. It was very tasty, but he didn't know what kind of grass it was. He decided to take everything back so the captain would praise him. Meanwhile, he made a large pile with the leftover corn husks. In the forest, the little bear was patrolling with his mother. Suddenly, the mother bear became extremely angry, sensing someone's presence in her territory. Far away, the dragoness was sipping juice. Now that her body had grown, she could wear adult-sized clothes. However, a message interrupted the dragoness's leisure moment, making her angry. It was the red bear requesting her attention. The tower administrator went to see what was happening and was left speechless. While the farmer slept contentedly on the husks, the administrator sent an urgent message. The crimson bear had detected traces of another monster near the cave. Now, she was at the top of the cave, trying to communicate with the farmer. When the bear carried him up, he noticed that all the corn husks had disappeared and had no idea what had happened. He realized the corn husks placed to retain soil moisture had vanished. Meanwhile, the merchant cat was attracting the attention of humans as he reached the 38th floor. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.